Hello and welcome to the SuperShow podcast, your weekly dose of news and insights into the world of video games, peppered with hot takes and trash opinions. Today we're going to be giving you the lowdown on the latest in the storm that currently surrounds Activision Blizzard. We'll be talking about Respawn's pissing off of a whole bunch of Titanfall fans, and we're going to take a look at THQ Nordic's 10th anniversary stream. Joining me today to discuss all these topics and more is a man whose gaming knowledge is only eclipsed by his love of K-pop and novel energy drinks. He may be 1/3 of the Super Show, but he's full fat Jamie on Twitter, so go follow him.
Good evening, Jonesy. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. We've also got a guest this week who needs no introduction, but I've written him one, so I'm going to give him it to it anyway. A Twitch streamer with one eye firmly on the future, the region reviews the top dog of technology. It can only be TechNuovo's very own Stef. How you doing, mate?
Yes, that was a great intro. That's the best intro. That's the best way anyone has ever introduced me ever. So I'm grateful for that. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm really good at it. Do you know what? I wrote an intro because I was like, we're having a guest on, so I'm actually going to do it properly. And then I managed to bugger it up. So there you go.
Twice.
Twice.
I'll give you props for it, Jonesy, but I'm a little bit miffed. Is K-pop really that big of a defining feature about me and my personality and what I bring to the table?
Yes.
No.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Although there's one band. There's one K-pop band. I can't remember what they're called.
We don't need to go into
girls.
specific. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Go figure. No, we can end that topic of conversation there. We don't need to go into why this one specific band with all the girls is.
Well, that's the only reason guys listen to K-pop, right?
Pretty much.
Know, it's like saying you read Playboy for the articles. Like, you're only telling half the truth.
I was trying to get something in Jamie's intro about how broad and lovable his smile is, but I couldn't quite fit it in. I couldn't figure out how to do it, like about making it sound really weird.
It was a very kind and thoughtful intro, regardless. And I'll give you props as well, whether it was intentional or not, for the whole storm around Blizzard kind of thing. I like it.
Do you know what? Okay, so this week I've kind of fallen into a little hole on YouTube of watching videos about Eminem and people taking apart his lyrics and how many double entendres and triple entendres and like how deep his lyrics go. And I've been a fan of Eminem since I was 15, so 20 odd years or something. But I did not appreciate, especially in his later stuff, how he goes into stuff. So I've got a few double I can't even say that word. A few double entendres in my intro, and I don't know if you picked up on all of them. You probably didn't, but there's a couple in there. So,
do you know what? I'd have to listen to it again and break it down, sort of line by line. And I don't know. Maybe if we start like a rap breakdown analysis podcast.
That would be interesting, wouldn't it? If someone had to sit through and watch all of our podcasts.
This means that next time that you have to do that again, but it has to rhyme, and preferably you can spit it old school.
And you have to buy an Eminem NFT.
Yeah.
So you own the rights to the music to rap
instrumental
to.
has to be a $100,000 Eminem NFT.
Yeah. Hell yeah. That would be interesting. Hey, if we get to the point where we can afford that, then we'll be doing all right. But,
Shout out to the patrons. We're putting all your money into NFTs, baby. Keep pledging.
If only. All right, okay, I have a little bit of housekeeping and then we'll get right into the news. So the Super Show podcast is available on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, and many other podcasting platforms. You can reach out to us on YouTube, in the comments, or on Twitter at Super Show Pod. The show also goes out on internet radio on Mondays at paisleyradio.com and repeats on Thursdays. So if you want to listen to us like old school radio style, you can head over to Paisley Radio. You can also chat to us.
Head over old school radio style and then head over to Paisley Radio. Yeah. Is there like a frequency? Have you got like 104.9 Paisley Radio? Or is this like internet radio?
No, it's internet. It's internet radio.
The middle ground between FM radio and podcasts.
See, I hope that they also have like an FM thing and we just don't know about it, but I don't think they have. I think it's
Can we reach out to Paul and ask about that? Is that expensive to start up to get your own radio frequency?
You can't do it.
My grandpa,
you can't do it.
My grandpa, for my whole childhood, he would sit in his shed that he had in the garden and do something. He had a radio in there, and he would just spend hours in there. And he'd take a bottle of whiskey in there with him, and he would just sit there like tuning in. I don't know what he was tuning into, and then he would come back inside and beat his wife.
Oh,
he's definitely trying to tune into military frequencies around the world.
The funny thing is,
boys used to do it, isn't it?
My grandparents are Scottish, so maybe Paisley Radio did come up one day while he was tuning around.
I thought you were going to say that your granddad was like a pirate radio guy and he had a transmitter on his garden
that'd be so sick.
He worked at the fish counter at Sainsbury's and then died of a heart attack in his early 60s. What a life.
Oh.
There was still time to have a pirate radio, though. Yeah, I think you have to pay licensing fees and commercial fees to the people, whoever owns the airwaves. You have to pay them for the frequency. So whether Paisley Radio pays something, I don't know.
We could do that thing, though, where you buy a boat, park it 20 miles off the coast, and then we can just transmit into the airwaves, and there's nothing they can do.
There you go. Pirate radio, like Stef said.
Yeah. Literally pirate radio. That'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it?
Pirate podcasts.
Pirate podcast. So we beam it into the internet, like in the Matrix when they used to beam their signal in on the Nebuchadnezzar.
It's a podcast exclusively available on the dark web. Early access still for patrons.
Yeah, you still have to. It's pirate radio, but you still have to pay for it.
Yeah.
Talking of paying for it, you can actually give us money if you would like to over at Patreon.
Talking of paying for it, oh yeah.
Talking of paying
you
for
got a story to tell us, Jonesy?
No. For as little as $2, you can get onto our Discord server and you can chat to us direct. For $5 and up Patreons, we do have some extra exclusive content like the coveted Known Murderer podcast. If you haven't heard it yet and you're a Patreon, get on there and hear it. We've also got some behind the scenes and some After Dark podcasts if you want to hear us get a little bit more adult.
Where's the Known Murderer podcast?
Have you not heard it yet? Oh, mate.
Am I missing? Have you guys got another podcast I'm missing out on?
We've only made one so far, and we're waiting for Chris to come back to make the second one. This came out of I think it was an After Dark we were chatting about. Someone said Jamie referred to a celebrity as a known murderer. Like he said, this celebrity, hold on, let me give him their title, known murderer. And so
was it Matthew Broderick?
It was Matthew Broderick.
That rings a bell.
So we actually did a whole show based and talked about known murderer Matthew Broderick and the case and whether or not he is a known murderer or whether it was just a case of wrong place, wrong time. All that. So if you want to find out if Matthew Broderick's actually a known murderer, maybe become a $5 patron, check it out.
Oh yeah. And
well, guys, all that out the way, should we talk about some news stuff?
Yeah, let's do it.
So first up today, I thought we'd talk about Respawn because they did get in a little bit of hot water. Maybe is too much. But following on from the story we had last week when we were talking about the NVIDIA GeForce Now leak, and a whole load of game titles were released online, some games that we'd not even heard of, some games that haven't been announced. Of course, one of the games on that list that I think we were quite excited about was Titanfall 3. I know Chris would have been definitely excited about that. So that prompted a whole bunch of Titanfall fans to reach out on a Respawn stream specifically and ask their entertainment community coordinator, Jason Garza, about the possibility of a third game, which I have to give you his quote when he responded, because I think this is such a terrible way to reply to fans of a game series that you're responsible for. So when they asked if this game's coming, he said, or they said, what, Titanfall 3, is there any possibility? He said, yeah, it's a game with a lot of mechs. It's an old one back from when Xbox One first launched. Don't get your hopes up, man. I've said this before. We just don't have anything in the works. There's nothing there. We've got too many other games in the works right now. What do you think about that?
It's pretty strong, right? Like, it's a bit of a slap in the face for anyone that's a long-time Titanfall fan or had invested any hope at all that there could be more Titanfall in the future. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think, especially when it's something that's said in a live stream and it was probably kind of off the cuff and obviously not prepared or PR'd at all. Like, I don't think it's like an insulting kind of thing to say. And anyone that wears their Titanfall heart on their sleeve that much that they're insulted by it probably needs a bit of a reality check anyway.
Chris.
Yeah, like Chris was probably weeping when he watched the stream.
How dare you say that about Titanfall?
Exactly. But also, like, the other thing I'll say, not to, is that the idea that Respawn having too many other things in the works right now kind of tracks, because keeping Apex Legends, hot and fresh and keeping the servers alive is probably a pretty time-consuming job, and they're making another fucking Jedi game, so, there's things going on at Respawn.
I do like the idea that when he said this, it was actually more like, oh yeah, it's a game with a lot of mechs. Like, oh no, don't get me wrong, we've just got a lot of things in the works. But when you read it, it's a lot more fun to read it like he was being a real arsehole. He was just like calling them out and trying to be a smarmy little bastard. So it's more fun to assume that's how he meant it. Were you a Titanfall guy, Steph?
I wasn't actually. I only realised Titanfall was a popular game when Chris spoke about it because he loved it. I just didn't give it a second thought when it first arrived. I mean, I've been a PC gamer anyway, so if it first arrived on console, it probably passed me by. But yeah, I've never ever gone back to it. I've never felt the need to go back to a Titanfall game.
It was one of those that I originally, wasn't into. But I'd see it, because I wasn't an Xbox guy, but I'd seen it and I was like, damn, that looks pretty sweet. Because we had Mech Warrior back in the day, and Mech Warrior was a game that I always wanted to get into, and like the idea of mechs and stuff always seemed really cool. And I think Titanfall made that seem much more approachable. And then this campaign of Titanfall 2 was incredible. I loved it. It was incredible. It was punchy. It was short. It had everything I wanted. The story was on point. I never really got into the multiplayer, but I'm definitely someone who really enjoyed Titanfall 2, so I would love a Titanfall 3. But I don't think I'm going to get that salty about.
No. Also,
maybe they were being quite literal. Maybe he was being quite literal about it, that Titanfall is done. Respawn want to focus on the future. That's the way I kind of took it. But then he could also, as you said, be a little bit jokey.
Yeah, like he didn't really know. Like, he was just
it's not in the works, but you never know.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, I don't really want to say anything too much about it now.
Because even when you look at like you guys talking about, your personal and individual experiences in history with Titanfall as a series, like completely tracks and makes sense in both cases. Because Titanfall 1, as we said, was kind of this weird anomaly of like, it was a console exclusive on Xbox, so PlayStation fans were iced out. It was very early on in the Xbox One's life cycle when it was still kind of finding its feet. And it didn't have a campaign, do you remember? It did the thing of like, go into multiplayer matches and someone's going to be talking over the top of it, and that's your story. And then Titanfall 2 was a much better game with a campaign, and then EA sandwiched it, well, partly intentionally, part not, 1 week between Battlefield 1 and Call of Duty Infinite Warfare on either side. So it was basically sent out to die. And it's one of those weird things, isn't it, where like we get it a lot nowadays with the rapture around remasters and remakes, which is that so many people very vocally support games that underperformed commercially, and sometimes publishers cave, and oftentimes it doesn't work. And one of them, I will just say before I finish my ramble, one of the most high-profile cases of that I can remember that almost pivoted what the publisher thought entirely about certain projects happened to EA as well with Mirror's Edge, where people were crazy about Mirror's Edge. Everyone was like, I love Mirror's Edge. Look at me. I'm a Mirror's Edge fan. And they were like, okay, fine. Yeah, a lot of people like Mirror's Edge. We'll make another Mirror's Edge game. And no one bought that Mirror's Edge game. Now, the argument could be that the solution to that issue is making a better one than Catalyst was. But still, apparently, lots of people have said in the years since then that EA were hurt by, not like emotionally, I think financially is the way that EA really gauge that stuff. But that was why they veered away from that stuff.
I love the idea that they were like emotionally wounded by what the audience had done to them, and they're like, never again. Yeah, those bitches.
That robotic guy with the world's sharpest chin who used to present their press conferences just crying backstage because no one bought Catalyst.
It's funny you say about Mirror's Edge, because that was a game that I loved. Like, I was really into it, but it was definitely a moment in time. Like, it was the novelty of the first person aspect. It was like the idea of the parkour thing. Everything kind of worked when it came out, when it released, and I was really into it. But when they announced the sequel, I had no desire to go and pick that up. Like, there was nothing that made me want to go and get Catalyst at all.
I never played Catalyst, but I played the first one. Again, it was at a time where parkour was all over the internet, and everyone down your local high street would jumping over barriers.
It was a different type of parkour, that's for sure.
I want to see when did Mirror's Edge came out?
2007?
Oh, okay, that's perfect. So Mirror's Edge...
I'll fact check that while you go.
So Mirror's Edge must have been...
Oh, 2008, excuse me.
2000, so let me think, 2000... But it's still, it totally tracks. So Mirror's Edge came out at a time when I actually bought some K-Swiss parkour trainers.
Of course he did, Jonesy.
Oh, yes.
They like, I had no intention of doing parkour, but they came out of this specific, like, parkour specific trainer, and they were sick. Like, I really liked them. So that's why I got them. It wasn't because I wanted to do parkour. I was like, oh, they're so cool. And also because parkour was really popular. The funny thing was they were like slick bottomed, if I remember rightly. or like sticky, like so they were like a sticky soled like rubber thing.
I suppose if you're landing on a metal pole, you're not going to want your legs kicking out from underneath you.
I guess so. Like maybe they had a bit of grip to them, but it was like a bit weird. But the thing was, I started working in London around that time, and I used to walk into work. And when it was all like wet days,
you parkour to work.
no, I was going to say that
You saw some
when it was
scaffolding
wet,
just off Oxford Street, so yes, detour.
Never. But when it was wet, they wouldn't grip the ground very well at all. So they were like ice skating.
Weird.
Yeah, because like some parts of London just have all these weird like paving slabs that are super like rough, but when they get wet, they're super slippery. And I just remember these trainers were kick ass, but I used to I nearly fell on my ass a couple of times.
Knowing you, Jonesy, you probably traded them in for Heelys a year later.
I never owned Heelys, unfortunately.
That's okay. That's surprising. Did you own the shoes with like the divots in the middle so you could grind down rails while wearing the shoes?
No, I want.
What were they called, Steph? What were they called?
I cannot remember, but they sound much better than a pair of Heelys. I used to blade as well.
They were called soap shoes. I think soap
shoes. I've never heard of soap shoes
because soap was the name of the brand, but it was kind of like Heelys. They became synonymous enough
shoes.
with what they were for that that became the term. And so they were specifically made for. It was during the late 90s where like skating and all that stuff was at its height. They created these shoes that had these like rail-shaped divots in the middle that were made of this hard material so it wouldn't damage the shoe itself. So you could like jump on a rail and grind down it on your shoes. And people became like professional soapers and stuff like that.
Wow.
That can't be a thing. It reminds me, it just feels like the late teen adult alternative of skidding on your knee.
Skidding, yeah, exactly.
Skidding, yeah.
It's like when you're a kid, you skid on your school hall floor.
Oh, that's great.
When you get to mid-teens, you grind down rails
it's a gateway drug.
Shoes.
80% of skidders go on to be soapers. Fact.
That, you know, I did want. Did you remember those stilts, like the springy stilts?
Oh, like Blade Runner, sort of like what's his name? The South African Oscar Pistorius, but with the legs.
But with legs, yeah. And I actually saw someone once come out of work, strap themselves into their springy stilts, and go running off down the road. And I just thought, yeah, they're never catching on.
Yeah,
like they looked cool online and stuff and on TV, but in real life, a little more of a pain in the arse.
I think they end up using them quite a lot in films. Like I know the actor who played a lot of the characters in Pan's Labyrinth, for example, would wear them and they do the prosthetics around them. So he's 9 foot tall and he has a weird shaped leg, like El Fauno really would.
Yes, because the leg kind of goes backwards and then up to the knee and then forward.
Yeah.
And it makes it actually look better the way that it works. That if people out there, if you haven't seen Pan's Labyrinth, it is such a good movie. Like, seriously.
I haven't seen Pan's Labyrinth.
Have you not seen Pan's Labyrinth?
Do you know what?
Oh, my goodness.
Steph, I've got an alternative for you that I've been getting really into lately, and I thoroughly recommend it to not just you, but anyone listening, is if there's a movie that you really should watch, or better yet, a movie that you really should rewatch, but you don't have the energy for it for whatever reason, go onto YouTube and just watch all the clips from the movie that you can find, but do it for so long that you end up spending more time watching all those clips when accumulated than the length of the movie itself, and you realise you're wasting your life away. I don't know why I always end up doing that.
But then you're watching technically you're watching the best bits of a film, because why would anyone else clip anything else from a film?
Yeah.
So you're just watching the best bits and cutting out all the gumph in the middle of a 2-hour film.
Like fucking Casablanca, watch the clips on YouTube, read the Wikipedia entry, you go.
Another clubs, another bars, another wow.
Exactly.
When I was a kid, my mate used to fast forward through movies we'd watch together, like, because he'd go, oh, this is rubbish, this bit's rubbish. So I remember we watched Battle of Endor, or Battle for Endor, whatever it's called, with the little Ewoks and stuff. So it's like the Star Wars spin-off film, and he'd seen it, and I went to his house, and it was on the VHS there. So he's got and he just would watch like a battle, and then he'd go, this bit's rubbish, and he'd just fast forward, and then there'd be another fight, and he'd play it, and he'd go, yeah, this bit's good. And then
when me and my friends used to watch Aliens, the second one, Aliens, we used to skip it up to the bit where the Marines kicked in, because all the bit before that is just so bad. It's just not good. And as soon as those Marines
as a kid, it doesn't really, you don't really care, do you, about exposition?
Same with Taxi Driver. Just skip the entire movie and then just watch the last 90 seconds when he actually starts to kill people. false advertising. I thought the whole point was he's crazy the whole time, and he is, but he doesn't kill anyone.
This is true.
So yeah,
this is true. Because back in the day, you couldn't go online and watch a little bit. You had to like put the film in and actually watch.
Actually, that reminds me of like what I did for my film school project for like my dissertation. I recut Blade, so it was only the films where the scenes, where Stephen Dorff has screen time. I'm a big Stephen Dorff fan, and he was probably the most underrated star of the '90s if you think about it. It's a very popular cut. I called it the Dorff cut. It was 16 minutes long.
What grade did you get for that? What theory did you pose to your lecturers?
I was asked to leave the college today. Don't know what grade I got.
Sorry, Jamie. We're not a fan of Stephen Dorff here.
And I said, I'm taking the Dorff cut to Hollywood. The people need to wake up.
It was titled Blade: a Stephen Dorff story, and it was just 16 minutes long.
No, that was the novelization that I wrote about the experience of making the documentary that was called Blade: The Making of Blade: The Dorff Cut.
Wow, Stephen Dorff. Whatever happened to Stephen Dorff? Oh, hey, okay. I'm gonna have to bring it back because I haven't told you the end of this Respawn story yet. So let me bring it back before we get too far down the Stephen Dorff rabbit hole.
You should sell it as an NFT, Jamie. The Dorff cut.
The Dorff cut.
The Dorff cut.
Or should I just create a page where like I just every image of Stephen Dorff that's ever existed, I'll just get the NFT of it. And I'll become the sole trader of Stephen Dorff related digital memorabilia.
You could just call them. You can make NFT coins and just call them Dorffs. Like how many Dorffs? Dorff have you got? Coin. 5 Dorffs, 10 Dorffs. Hey, it's a growth industry. Okay, so look, the last thing that Respawn had to say on this whole issue, in case you've forgotten.
Oh yeah, Respawn
about Titanfall 3 not being a thing. There was a bit of outrage, as you can probably imagine, because a lot of Titanfall 3 or Titanfall stands, I should say, weren't that impressed with the mocking way Jason sort of summed up the whole Titanfall saga. So they actually came out on their official Twitter and they said, Titanfall is the very core of our DNA. Who knows what the future holds? So, do you know what? I'm going to go, and I'm going to ask each of you your opinion. I think this is a case of the original thing from Jason Garza is the old, I think the lady does protest too much. And they know full well that there is a Titanfall 3 in the works that was leaked by NVIDIA, but they didn't want it to be announced anytime soon. So they're like, if anyone mentions this, just say it's not a thing. Like, of course it's not a thing. But then because of the backlash, they've come out and said, who knows what the future holds? So I think it definitely is in the works, in like, maybe not like being made yet, but it's in the works, as in it's planned to happen at some point in the future. Steph, what do you think?
I think there's a possibility that it'll be in the works, but then I also think it's Respawn covering their tracks and thinking, please don't hate us, please don't hack the Apex Legends servers again and block out millions of players because we can't handle it or something like that. So yeah, it might just be just calming down the Titanfall community, putting out fires as opposed to teasing people with a new release.
Yeah. Plus, like, putting out a teasy little statement like that only does good, right? It only builds excitement and anticipation. And, you know, if anyone gets too carried away, it's only their own fault, you know, for taking it and running with it. But for Respawn, it's just like, it's all positive, you know? Especially while, as kind of like we've been talking about, like Apex Legends is still in that universe. There's still kind of like a shared history between the two. One thing I will say, though, Jonesy, is like, I feel like if there was something going on behind the scenes, rather than it being something that they're planning, I feel like it's probably more something that they're like prepared for, where I think there are enough sort of like creative people who worked on the either one of the first two games in some capacity, who, like, if you went into the Respawn offices and got a certain number of heads together and said, what are the ideas for Titanfall 3, they would know what the answer to that question is, because it's probably hard not for them to spitball that stuff, and then maybe even have had that conversation with EA at some point. But like, I don't know.
You don't think there's a date on the cards for Titanfall 3, roughly speaking?
No, well, I think if you're EA and you're really committed to the Titanfall franchise and the future of Titanfall, then A, you don't send Titanfall 2 to its death by sandwiching it between the two biggest first-person shooters in the world. B, you don't give Respawn lots of other responsibilities to do, including now the marquee Star Wars franchise, which is still, you know, one of the biggest non-gaming IPs that you can work with. C, you don't also launch a separate product that is also a first-person shooter and has a far bigger sort of like audience capacity because it's free to play that's set in the same universe. Again, I'm not suggesting that Apex Legends' existence would detract from Titanfall 3 or vice versa, but I don't think you sort of like shift what you're doing with that world unless you're looking for new ideas that aren't Titanfall 3. And also, like, I don't know, I think the first-person shooter... This one's more speculative and maybe more an opinion thing, but I think the space for competitive first-person shooters right now is a little bit odd, where like there have been new entrants that have kind of like paved their way and found an audience and so on and so forth. But I think the Battle Royale situation confused things slightly. I think Call of Duty has had to go through some tough times and a lot of experimentation to ultimately end up making more or less the exact same product it always made. And I think EA are still continuing, as we've seen with Battlefield over the last several years, to show that they're still trying to figure out what that looks like for them. And I'm not suggesting Battlefield 2042 is going to be in any kind of trouble, but like Battlefield 2042 feels like a weird prospect. And the fact that it got delayed like that extra 3 weeks, and the fact that it hasn't had any public closed alphas yet that you can access by pre-ordering or something like that, you know, when we're basically in October now, like...
Oh, it's had one.
That was completely closed though, like NDA'd.
Oh yes,
What I mean is like Call of Duty's out in the same time frame, and Call of Duty had all the NDA'd stuff like months ago, and has now had like a closed alpha, then a closed beta for pre-orders, and now an open beta for everyone. Like, there's something weird going on with Battlefield 2042, which for a game that doesn't even have a campaign, which Titanfall 3, I'm drawing in a lot of influences here, but what I'm suggesting is like, even if EA were interested, I think now is a good time to pump the brakes and wait and see what happens over the next, maybe even a year or two, right?
Yeah, probably longer than that, I suppose.
Yeah. See what happens to the Titanfall player count, see if Jedi Fallen Order 2 cements it as a franchise or maybe goes the other way. Like, take your time.
It's a rainy day game. It's a rainy day game. If Battlefield absolutely, I don't know, flops and dies a horrible death within a year, they'll be thinking, oh no, we've lost so much money. What can we do? Titanfall 3.
It was funny because, Jamie, you saying about Battlefield 2042 and the prospects, you know, what are the prospects for it, given it hasn't had, you know, closed alphas, betas, whatever, for people who have already purchased it. In this day and age, though, those things always worry me now, because I'm like, the game's done. It's not changing. And when it goes into those closed alphas, closed betas, open betas, et cetera, you know that the game is already finished. And if it's trash, if people come out of that going, yeah, it's not very good, but they might fix it by the time it gets released, I'm like, there is no fixing it. The game is done. It's polished. It's finished. It's getting released.
If that's true, then the reverse has to be true. And that means that if there's no public facing alphas or betas, that it's not finished. And that becomes increasingly worrying for a game that is scampering for extra release time to the tune of literally like 2 to 3 weeks. Like, you can't fix a game in 2 to 3 weeks like that.
No.
Battlefield, I think it'll be fine, but I think it increasingly sounds like a game that's coming. It hasn't had the run-in that it's supposed to. I firmly believe that. That might mean it's fine in the end, but it hasn't had the run-in it's supposed to.
But until they seal the deal by doing those releases, it still has potential.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? And even if they delayed it, even if we got a week away, or not a week away, but if we got like 3 weeks away from the new release date, and they said, "Look, we're really sorry, but we're pushing this by 6 months," I would be like, "Oh, there's still potential. There's something wrong with it, but there's potential for them to sort it out." As soon as they start pumping out those, you know, those experiences nowadays, it's like, nah, you're done. I've been so burnt by the whole Marvel's Avengers thing and other situations that I'm like, nah, that game is a known quantity. If you think anything's going to change between now and release, you are delusional. But with that, I think we should, talking delusion, I think we should move on to a comment of the week.
Wow. That's okay, a bit strong.
Because we last week sort of made a bit of a it wasn't an idea. We had a bit of a joke and said, wouldn't it be cool if somebody, maybe they listened to the podcast with their partner, maybe, you know, that they wanted to do a fun way of proposing, and that they contacted us and said, hey, it'd be great if you could help me propose to my other half. But somebody replied to that. Faki Afghari actually had a comment which made us all chuckle, so we thought we'd slide it in here, which says, just imagine someone actually made you guys do the proposal thing, and then next week you found a comment that she said no. So if you are delusional and your other half will definitely say no, please don't reach out to us and say, can you help us sort of help me pop the question, because we do not want to be part of that, of you feeling like crap. So make sure your partner's
How would that make you guys feel?
That's what I'm saying. I don't want to be part of that. It'd make me feel really bad. I think I'd have to like try and make it up to them. I don't know how I would do
one
that.
word, Steph. Content. Clip it and ship it, baby. Straight to the shorts. Straight to the short shelf.
Jesus. Yeah. And it all just like clickbaity like titles and stuff.
Yeah.
Wait till the end. He asked her to marry him.
His
It didn't go well. Wait till the end.
Caps.
Yeah. All right. Okay. It's this time of the podcast that we like to give a shout out to some of the people that managed to, they go the extra mile. They keep the lights on. They keep us coming back. They keep the wheels turning. And that is, of course, our Patreons who support us over at patreon.com/SuperShow. I'd like to give a shout out to some of them right now. And they are Aaron Cameron, Athletic Gravy, Jesper Camden Nilsson, Javella Cujo, Leo Merger, Lonnie Thompson, Magic Grits, Mindful Pig, Nathan Pears, part of the 0.24%, if you know, you know, Pastors Guild, Scary Omen, Starfall Kid, Zach Cream, and the big dogs. It is Shell Shock, Doppler, Hacksaw Book Read, Manuel Guerrero, The Dude Abides, and twitch.tv/Peaswad, where I'm a shirtless fat man in a coconut bra. Thank you so much to all of you guys for supporting us week on week. It is truly appreciated. And I, for one, can testify to the fact that Peaswad is, I wouldn't say a fat man. I would say a fine-figured fellow in a coconut bra, because I subscribed and he popped the shirt off and flashed the coconut bra when I did. So if you fancy seeing that.
He hates pork scratchings, by the way.
Does he actually?
Yeah,
That's a fact. I sent him a box of British like snacks and treats for subscribing to my Twitch channel for a year. And he said he absolutely hated pork scratchings and prawn cocktail crisps. He wasn't a fan of those either.
Wow.
Like the Walker's prawn cocktail.
Yeah.
Okay.
Walker's.
No, yeah, he's saying that he didn't like the pork scratchings. I thought he was talking about Percy Pigs at first, because he was like those weird sort of jelly pork things. And I was like, what, Percy Pigs? He's like, no, pork scratchings. And I was like, come on, man.
Pork scratchings are fantastic. They're so salty.
Good. No, pork scratchings, I agree with him. They're not good. But they are a British staple snack.
There's a point in the night when you're however many pints in where the idea of the saltiness of a bag of pork scratchings is exactly what you want.
A pint of ale. Okay, right, let me paint the scene for our non-British or like, I guess, Irish, Scottish listeners or whatever. You're sitting in a British pub with a pint of ale, and then someone walks over and puts on the table. This is always how it happens where I am anyway. They like put like 3 packets of stuff down, and then they split the whole packet open and put them in the middle of the table, and everyone just dips in. And when there are some pork scratchings there, and you've got a nice like cask or something, and you just drinking that with some pork scratchings is epic. Dry roast peanuts, of course, another
salt and
I
vinegar
would rather have a handful of dry roast peanuts than a pork scratching, I think.
Some Brannigans.
Yeah. All good stuff.
Get really weird with it.
It's all good stuff. And I guess while we're talking about the fact that Peaswad subscribed to the TechNuovo Twitch channel for an entire year, it's as good a time to any as say that as much as we are on YouTube and people might be listening to us or watching us on there right now and they can subscribe and all that stuff. Steph, you've got your own stuff going on at TechNuovo. You've got the YouTube channel, churning out content and reviews and stuff all the time, right?
Pretty much 2 videos a week we put out now. Most weeks. There have been a couple of times where we've just thought, no. But we do try to stream 3 days a week as well, on a Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. Yeah. 8 o'clock British time.
And can I also just, there's sort of a selfish plug, just say particularly twitch.tv/TechNuovo, the Thursday streams are usually, not always, depending on sort of mood and various other factors, but usually an F1 stream. And
that's Wednesday.
Oh, that's Wednesday. Thursdays
Wednesdays are F1 streams.
Thursdays when we film this. My bad. I'm getting my days mixed up. Wednesday. And the reason it's selfish is because I'm on them. So you can come and watch me and Stef and some of the other TechNuovo family get wet.
And you're currently in second place in the league table.
A little bit of P2
I was just going to
action.
ask. I was going to ask how's
second
it set
place
at the moment. So Steph, I'm assuming you're first place.
I'm third. My cousin's storming it. He's so good at that game.
Mr. Milk himself.
Yeah. He's storming it. James in second, I'm in third.
Yeah.
And then other people trickle off.
One thing I will say, Jonesy, because again, you've played with us before many a time in F1 games.
Badly, yeah.
But it's even harder this year, where something about the AI balance is all over the place, and it's just it's almost like there's no sweet spot, and it's been very hard to get points.
That is a tough game. Like, I enjoyed playing with you guys, but I was it was one of those where, you know, like you can see other people progressing and doing better, and then every week you're just like at the back of the pack and doing shit. And I was just like,
every week we're at the back of the pack now.
Yeah,
every week in, week out, we're at the back. 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th.
Yeah, there are literally sometimes there are qualifiers where we're just like everyone is at least a second off the AI. It's like wow,
brutal.
Yeah, it's painful.
But yeah,
this is a brutal
this is a
game.
this is a great time to kind of roll into our catch up. Our catch up. Well, I said that weird. Catch up. There you go. I think I said ketchup the first time. So, Steph, what else have you been playing on your streams apart from Formula One? You were saying you've been playing a bit of Raft.
Yeah, Raft has really taken off on the stream. I very, very much enjoyed that. That started off very slowly, and we were just very much collecting the resources out of the ocean, making a little raft, and stopping at islands every now and then when they spawned in, and we thought that was it. And it wasn't until we stumbled across almost like, it looked like an oil rig, but it was like an oil rig made out of like caravans almost.
Right.
So like a false,
like a gypsy
town.
campsite on the sea.
Yeah, essentially. And it wasn't until then that we thought, whoa, this is getting good. This is now getting good. It's like Waterworld and Lost all rolled into one.
I have not even seen any of Raft. I unfortunately haven't seen any of your streams. I'm going to have to start watching them because that sounds kind of mad. So what?
Yeah, it's a very simplistic game. It's a survival game at heart, where you need to provide yourself with food, water. You can grow crops. You can visit different islands.
So you're playing as other players, or are there? Is it just you and your?
Just us. Right. I think it's server parties of 4. I think is the maximum amount of people that can play. Might be more. I don't know. But there's 4 of us that started.
So that'd be so cool if you could like come across other people who've made their little raft island.
I'm right in thinking, Steph, you don't steer the raft per se, or do you?
Well, we've just got now where you can build like a pirate ship wheel. So this massive wheel, and you can steer the ship. And that's why we needed the engines on the back of the boat to be able to steer it. But at first, you're very much taken by the tide until you get a sail. You get ingredients, you can build yourself a sail, and then you can at least sort of catch the wind. And then you can upgrade to the engines like we've just done now.
It's cool, man.
Which is, but yeah, as I say, it was very slow to start, and we were very bored. But yeah, as soon as this thing happened, we were just like, oh wow, we've got like a sense of direction now. We've got a radar that we can find different codes around the world and key into the radar to get to different points on the map. Yeah, it's great.
And I feel like you and the TechNuovo crew, because I remember like even after just looking at the last like 12 to 18 months, like I remember you played some No Man's Sky like not that long ago. I remember you guys were there when Valheim was all kicking off. Yes. I'm right in thinking you played some of The Forest as well at some point?
Yeah, finished The Forest. So that like, again was absolutely fantastic. I loved it.
But there we go. So what I was going to ask about Raft specifically is like, how is it sort of stacking up? Because one of the things that seems to define all of those games, especially like No Man's Sky, is that it's around for so long that the content just becomes almost, gigantic in scale. Like, how is the Raft sort of shaping up compared to games that have maybe been around slightly longer? Or
Raft is definitely, in terms of what you can do, what you can build, the features within the game, it's a lot smaller than something like No Man's Sky.
Right. Okay.
No Man's Sky seems so big now and so in depth that you kind of look at that game and think, well, I don't really know what to do because there's no real tutorial and you have to work everything out yourself and you're like, well, I'm just stuck. I'm not going to play anymore. And Valheim, I think is almost on par.
I watched a few of your streams with Valheim.
Maybe slightly bigger.
It looked like you had a really good time with Valheim.
Valheim was great because it didn't really hold your hand as much as games usually do with big tutorials. Right. So a lot of that was working things out. But yeah, I thought Valheim was great for the size of the studio that actually created it. It was like 11 members of staff or something mental like that. I can't remember what the studio was called. But yeah, for a game like that to come out to have whatever, how many 500 million downloads or whatever stupid number that they got out the gate, to be able to now just release their first update, their first big update. Yeah, I think that's great.
I can't imagine
and
what
it's
it
an
does to
enjoyable
your
game
brain.
as well.
Like if you're a small studio that make a game like that, and then you think, you hope that you're gonna have success, but then to see that many downloads and just to be like absolutely blown away by it must be pretty incredible.
And the pressure, to find that extra oomph and like have those ideas that you might not have.
For sure,
considered.
yeah, absolutely.
I think in a world where big companies like, for example, Microsoft, that just seems to, and even EA, just seems to snap up everyone in existence. When you come out the gates as an indie studio, you manage to just absolutely smash sales. So you don't need the financial backing of a giant company like Microsoft or EA or Ubisoft or Respawn, whoever. So I think that in itself is a massive achievement.
Yeah.
But then Microsoft will snap them up and they'll pay untold amounts of money to buy this small studio to get the game underneath Microsoft, wouldn't they?
But then, then you've got the security and the health insurance and the pension plan and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Which you probably didn't get when you probably barely got a steady wage or paid on time when you're in a small studio.
Yeah.
Anything else that you've been playing that you want to mention?
Nothing that I've been playing too much in depth. You could probably see, actually, those of people watching on YouTube, I've got a monitor, which is the Huawei MateView GT. It's not out yet. You can pre-order it at the moment, but I'm currently testing that. And I've been back to a nice amount of games I never thought I'd really go back to. Like I played some more Doom Eternal, Destiny 2 I fired up again. Rocket League jumped on that, although it wasn't that long ago actually. Me and you played, Jamie, on Rocket League, but that was wicked. Horizon Zero Dawn, played that as well. So
just pushing the monitor to its limits, so to speak.
Yeah, pushing the monitor, capturing footage, as that's going to be published on Sunday, I believe. It's got a Sunday.
I can't see from it. It looks curved from here. Is it 16 by 9 or is it in
21 by 9, 34 inch with a 1500R curve?
Do you know what you should? I think you own it. Worth hitting up at 21 by 9. Death Stranding.
Oh, that's a good shout.
And the reason it's fresh in my mind is because the director's cut on PlayStation 5 came out, I think tomorrow comes out.
Yeah.
And they've done a thing where clearly, Mr. Kojima, in his cinematic ways, wanted there to be an ultra-wide version, but the PlayStation 5 can't natively output that resolution. No. So it's got an ultra-wide toggle on the PS5 that adds black bars to the top and bottom. So you can now play Death Stranding in 21 by 9, but it automatically puts black bars above and below. It's very odd.
Which should scale to that monitor.
Obviously, you'll be able to play it like natively, but I think,
of course.
Yeah. But weirdly enough, if you ran your PS5 into that monitor, it wouldn't scale because the PS5 still wouldn't be able to output in that exact resolution.
Right.
So the PS5, so it's like the PS5 version adds the black bars in. So the PC version, normal 21 by 9 because it's got 21 by 9 support. But the PS5 version output, like the black bars are a part of the presentation. And that's why it's this weird thing where if you watch the Digital Foundry video, because of the black bars, it's rendering less pixels. So the fidelity mode or the visuals mode for the graphics option with ultra-wide support on runs better than with it off because the black bars eat away at how much it's having to render. Right. So if you have ultra-wide on with the black bars, on a PS5 it now runs at native 4K and solid 60, which is quite nice.
Yeah, for sure.
That's cool, man.
I'd love to see that game in like ultra-wide.
Well, it's much cheaper for us than Ghost of Tsushima was, Jonesy. I think it's only £5 for us to get the director's cut and the PS5 upgrades and stuff.
I'm going to definitely carry on playing that on director's cut. Like I've said before, like I'm only halfway through. I've still got like 25 hours to go. But it's one of those that
25. That's more than that's less than me. Sorry, I've definitely got 60.
Oh, you reckon? Yeah, I've got a decent chunk still to get through on that game, and I managed to drag it out as well. Like I spent a long time in each area, which is why I stopped playing it because it was just it was so big and so long that I was like, I have to play some other stuff because I'm just spending forever.
Yeah.
But bloody fantastic.
Imagine how
game.
much faster you'll do it now with a catapult.
Yeah, super fun. I can just catapult myself wherever I want to go. And
Yeah, exactly.
Jamie, what have you been playing?
I have, the main focus for me in the last week or so has been continuing to work my way through Deathloop, which, I think I was pretty positive on last time I came on.
You were, yeah.
Which I was like 3 to 4 hours in. I gotta say, like, overall, I am probably more positive on it than I was even at the time. I think it's kind of got this very nice sort of like... I was about to use the word loop unironically there, but it is a loop. You basically, what I'm trying to say is that you start to get a grip of the reason that they created this game and the way they did it. And it's not just for narrative reasons or because they wanted to make a time loop game, even though it does still, pass with flying colours on those two fronts. I think it's also because they probably felt or realised there was something inherent to the way they developed some of their immersive sims in the past, especially you'd have to say Dishonored 1 and 2, that benefited from having players replay certain scenarios or replay certain levels or explore certain locations more fully and get more used to enemy routes and memorizing patterns and so on and so forth. But it wasn't a good natural fit in Dishonored where, like, what are you going to tell someone to do? Just play the same level over and over again. You create a loop system, a time loop system with smaller levels, and you're forced to engage with that stuff in a much more natural way. And I feel myself getting better at the game in a way that I didn't expect I would, because I found Dishonored and Dishonored 2 so difficult to get my teeth into. And that's been really, really rewarding. And that's what's kind of impressed me most over the last week.
It's almost genius from them, because it's in a way, it's a game that your enjoyment goes up the more you play it.
Yeah,
because you're having a better experience with the game.
It reminds me of, and not a comparison I thought I'd make, but I remember in the very early days of all-time gaming, I volunteered to gather some footage for Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, and it was after I'd just come off the back of probably spending 60, 70 hours in that game. And I was like, right, I'm going to record some footage, so for the sake of the channel, I'm just going to do some like stealth encounters, I'm going to go up to camps and do some stuff. And I was playing like one of those fucking cracked, like, elite YouTuber guys where I would go up to places where I knew where everyone was. I was so familiar with my loadout, all my weapons, the range, who would and wouldn't see me at certain points, what didn't make noise, how to distract people, how to time. And so it was almost like I was running through a scripted sequence. And Deathloop allows you to grow your way into that feeling where now, like, I feel much more in control of what I'm doing. And it makes the game a little bit too easy at times. I will say that much. Where now I've got like my super powered up Nexus, and like I know that if I go to Updam in the afternoon at noon and I don't prevent the fireworks factory from blowing up, then there's going to be 9 people outside, and I can Nexus them all at once. And I've got a silenced pistol with 3 perks in it that just increase the accuracy and the distance that I can shoot people from, and they all die at once, and then the entire area is clear, and I'm just running around. So I guess it's a double-edged sword, but net positive.
Okay, nice.
Have you been raided yet? And I'm not sure what it's actually called. Invaded.
Yeah, invaded, I guess. So I play on single player mode, which means I get invaded by
you wuss.
AI.
You wuss.
I know,
what are you doing?
I'm a coward. I'm a coward. I don't want someone better than me ruining my game. Like, the AI Juliana is enough of a bitch.
I've been invaded once, and I was in, I can't remember which map it was in, but it was in like a herbal cafe. Upstairs in a herbal cafe, there's a balcony. You look over into the like a small courtyard out the back. It's where the fun fair is. It looks like a fun fair.
Fristad Rock, I guess. I don't know.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the guy came running out, and he just stopped to have a look around. And I'd hit him, shot him in the back so many times, and killed him. It was such a good feeling knowing that it was a human player
the extra
that tried to ruin my game, but I ruined them.
Have you invaded other people's games yet?
I invaded one person's game, and they wouldn't come out of the entrance because I was standing there waiting for them to come out.
So does that mean you can't go and get them?
Yeah.
There's
So
a door that
left.
the player has to open that's got a little window in it at the beginning, because you come out of the tunnels, and that's like you coming out of the loading screen. That's funny, man.
So they just stayed in there until you left?
Yeah, because they didn't want to die. Because they could lose their stuff.
They get
if they die too many times,
they get 1. Come on.
I only get 1, but they get 3. Yeah.
They should have.
But yeah, they just didn't come out, so I just left.
It is daunting. Like, when the most threatening thing to your progress in a game that has roguelike elements is another player in like potentially an FPS deathmatch, like that's an intimidating and scary prospect. So I've been a coward so far. I'll fully admit that.
Is it so? But if you take out Juliana, is it Juliana? Is that her name?
Yeah.
That's it, yeah.
If you take out Juliana in that loop, you can't then get invaded again, right? Because she's one of the 8.
No, I think she can come back multiple times in a loop. I haven't finished the game yet, so I can't confirm it. But my understanding is that killing Juliana during an invasion is not the same as killing Juliana in a narrative sense.
Oh, that's weird.
I think there's more to it than that. I think there's more. There's a lot going on in the narrative of this game that is sort of like tucked away beneath the surface.
Right.
Without going into too much detail, I'll be able to report back this time next week with confirmation.
Nice. Are you close to finishing?
Yes, to the point where and this is actually one criticism that I start to leverage at the game. And it's a borderline criticism because it's more criticism of the way I ended up playing the game, but I wouldn't have minded with hindsight the game being a little bit more strong-armed with me in terms of preventing me from doing this, which was that the game has a very hands-on introduction tutorial, and Steph, you would have kind of felt that in the first 2 to 3 hours, where it really wants you to, there's no point in exploring until you can infuse stuff, because otherwise you're just picking up shit you're going to lose, whether you want to or not. And then the game does open up, and then you can infuse, and you can go anywhere, anytime. And my eyes lit up, and I was like, guns, good guns, powers, power upgrades. And I went and did all of that shit, and I was killing loads of people and doing random shit. And there's a target that most people will kill either first or second, I think, who you go, and there's a sort of a fun environment where they hang out that you can kind of kill them in. And you sort of noodle around their area where they hide, and you find a bit of information that leads you to the first clue you get of okay, here's an example of how 2 people are going to end up in the same place at the same time. Concrete evidence of how that's going to the breadcrumb trail beginning to form. And I interpreted that as this game is basically going to be kill each target once, explore their area, find a clue, and then put it all together. And it could be quite short. Turns out there's a lot more kind of find something here to go and do something there, to then go back here, to then go back there, to then go back there. And so what it really wants you to do is to naturally find this stuff while you're playing, so that when you get a clue that's oh, this clue gave me a piece of information that I can use in this location in the evening, you're meant to probably go somewhere else that noon, and then go a third place that afternoon, and then do that thing in the evening. Whereas I went full kind of game mode, no patience, and was well, I'm just going to skip time to the time and the place where I can do the objective. And the easiest example I can think of that, if you'll indulge me in a little story, is I basically was in a starter area called Up Dam. It's the first place you really explore in the morning. And I found a building, and the building had a terminal in it. I was reading the messages, and 2 people were chatting, and one person told the other person, I'm going to give you a passcode. I'm going to message it to you later on. And so my thing was okay, come back here at noon. So I left, come back at noon. Go to the building where the terminal was in has blown up. So it's you can't do that anymore. So again, being impatient, I time skip to morning the next day, go back to the place, find the thing that made it blow up, stop it blowing up, go back, time forward to noon, go back there now. It didn't blow up because I stopped it blowing up. Go to the terminal, get the passcode. The passcode is for a container that's in a separate place, a second place. So I go there immediately afterwards. I go there, I go to the container, I use the passcode. The passcode opens the container. The container has a computer in it. The computer gives me multiple choices, only one of which is correct, and I need to go to another place to find the information that will tell me what the correct thing to put in the computer is. Now, I think what they wanted to happen was you just kind of naturally were doing loops and exploring the way you wanted to, and killing visionaries and powering up and finding these things as you went. But because I powered up first and wanted to do the story second, I, for example, ended up loading into the exact same level 4 times to get one 4-digit passcode. Because that's the way the game is structured.
Yeah.
Right. So you were trying to game the game so you could do it in a quicker way for you.
And I wish I knew that, I wish I knew with hindsight, go out, go for weapons and go for powers, but don't be afraid to constantly be progressing leads. because some of them are probably longer than you think, and some of them are more like loopy in terms of locations and time zones than you might think.
Right.
You know,
that kind of makes sense.
If you've just done something in the noon, and your next objective is to be there again in the morning, don't skip the afternoon and the evening. Use that afternoon and the evening to go to a place you've never been before and explore other stuff and find more clues. So you're progressing everything at the same time, not getting like tunnel vision like I did. So it's like a mixture of a criticism of structure, but also a criticism of me, because I'm humble, and I can see my own flaws for what they are.
I'm so tempted to play it. Like I really am. Like since you were saying about playing it, someone else that we know messaged me and was like, "You need to play that game. It's really good." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
I think it's a nice puzzle game.
Yeah.
Right.
Could I potentially make life easier for you though?
Sure.
It'll be on Game Pass next year.
Oh yeah.
It's one of those though that I don't know. I feel like if I wait, I might not play it. But then, to be fair, I've got so much to play at the moment. I've got too much on, so maybe it's better to wait a year and then play on Game Pass.
Well, Jonesy, you've just said you're going to be jumping back into Death Stranding, so you've got time. You've got time to kill before Games Pass next year.
I'm just looking at all the games that Jonesy played in the last 7 days, and I think he's got time for a bit of Deathloop in there somewhere.
I forgot when I was writing in like what I've played. I'd forgot a few of them, but yeah, I should absolutely mention. Jamie, what else have you been playing? You been playing anything else?
I mean, I've been playing a little bit of FIFA 22, but there's not much to be said about FIFA. Especially
is that out?
I
thought it was out October.
No, it's coming out like at the end of this week / next week, but it's in the stage where if you have EA Play, you can start the timed trial. Which is just a timed version of the full game, and then if you've got it on,
if you've got EA Play, that means you've got it on PC, right?
No, EA Play's on PlayStation now.
But can you still use EA Play on PC?
I know they're separate memberships. Oh. Plus, I am definitely not buying the PC port of FIFA this year because they've fucking kicked it to the curb. Haven't you seen?
No.
The PC this year, the PC version of FIFA is not the next gen version. It's like the fucking old version.
Oh, I see.
You know how they do that sometimes with like handheld versions, where like the Switch version is like the same as the PS3 version.
Right.
This is the year where they're for whatever reason like the PC is being left behind and is getting like it does not getting any of the like engine upgrades. You know the stuff they're talking about like Hypermotion Plus or whatever it's called.
Yes.
Like that stuff's all PS5 and Xbox One, Xbox Series X exclusive. So I'm not buying the PC version this year.
I wonder if there's some kind of console exclusivity deal that's been made somewhere along the line between.
Yeah, maybe. Although
PlayStation, Sony and Microsoft with EA saying, "Give us the new ones first. We need to sell more consoles."
Yeah, maybe.
Interesting. Okay,
I was
going to suggest let's start a team. But
if you want to get a PS5, you're more than welcome to join our Pro Clubs team.
Is it not got crossplay?
That's not going to happen.
Oh no, because you can't crossplay.
Is it got
not on it? No.
Crossplay, EA Play crossplay.
If it's not the same thing,
I don't think there's any crossplay. There certainly wasn't this year. Because this year there wasn't even PS4, PS5 crossplay, which was a problem for us because our Pro Clubs team was split down the middle, PS5 and PS4.
That's mental. They need to sort that out. That is a big thing for 2022 gaming industry is to sort out crossplay as just an automatic feature.
But the fucked up thing for FIFA is like, just as PES felt like it was building a few years worth of momentum to challenge it, at least on the gameplay front, now PES has shit the bed as well. First of all, by not even being called PES, but second of all, by being like this weird glorified demo that becomes a game over the course of a year.
Isn't it free to play though?
It's a free to play game, but they've basically said that the launch version. They can
get away with anything.
But they've admitted, or they've said, admitted is a weird way of phrasing it, but they've said that the version of eFootball that will be there at launch, the free to play version that will be there at launch, is not the finished game to the point where it won't even have all the animations like in it yet. Like,
that's literally early access and it's free. So they're like, what are you going to complain about? Like that's
you
what
can't complain. You haven't given us any money.
They want to start making money off of it before it's ready, and rather than finish it, they're just like, we'll just put it out. What can they say? But
crazy shit.
There you go.
That's the thing. Yeah. I have nothing really to report on the gameplay side of FIFA other than Yes, there are new animations. Yes, if you play hundreds of hours of FIFA every year, you will every now and then go, oh, I haven't seen that one before. But also, after an hour or two of playing it, you will stop realizing that there are that many new animations. And as a career mode player, there's not that much to this for me. So just another year, another FIFA, in short.
It's just like player packs at this point, isn't it? It's just updating the roster, really, of who's playing.
For me, yeah. So because I do this, I do the thing where basically you're like the manager of a club in an offline game mode, no microtransactions. And the big new feature for that is you can create your own club. But I find that to be kind of like a one-time thing before it loses interest. So I made...
Right.
I've just said where I lived. See? And kind of did that for a bit. And then it's like, okay, yeah, I've done the one new thing that they spent a year making. And now it's very similar to last year's game. So,
but every year you buy the new one.
70 quid. 70 quid when you could have just played FIFA 21.
It's true. But then you'd know in the back of your mind the whole time that you're playing FIFA 21.
That's why they're probably it's actually clever to not do the crossplay and not let you play the previous versions and not let you play PS5 to PS4 is because they're like, no, we need to make them need to get every new thing we put out. We can't possibly exactly, yeah.
I have a theory that like if you were to make a graph, I'd say like the relationship between people who say, oh, just stop buying FIFA and stop supporting FIFA, it's just a roster update, and those is like inversely proportional with those who buy the game. Like I think the people who complain about it online always buy it, and they hate themselves, and that's why they complain, and they can't practice what they preach.
That's probably true. Probably absolutely true. Well, I've been playing a whole load of games this week, so I'm going to rattle through them because I don't want to take forever. We'll get on to the other news stories we're talking about. I'll tell you what I'm going to start off with is I played a bit of Predator Hunting Grounds because I actually live streamed that with the Just Interesting boys. I was playing with Martin and Alex over at their Twitch channel. I think they're just Twitch/Just Interesting, I believe. Yeah, we played because it's on PlayStation Plus. It was free for PlayStation Plus members this month. Hadn't played it before. I can't remember actually when it came out. It must be like a few years old now, obviously. But
no, it's not that old.
Is it not that old?
A year?
Is it 2019? Maybe that sound about
maybe
right.
Maybe 2.
Should we fact check it? Predator Hunting Grounds.
Yeah. Let's have a check.
I'm saying 2020.
2020.
2020.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That game feels older than it is.
Dated already.
It feels dated.
Yikes.
But I actually had a pretty good time with it. Like playing with those guys and always playing with mates always makes games feel better, always makes it sort of more enjoyable experience. But there was definitely the nostalgia thing from the Predator movies as well. Like they've really done a good job of including things that people who like that, you know, the first two films anyway will appreciate. So it's things like the audio, the noise they've used, and the fact like what you can do, like cover yourself in mud so that you can't be seen on the heat vision. And playing as the Predator was so much fun. Like I did enjoy the Predator because you can sort of jump from around on trees and shoot people with your shoulder-mounted cannon and stuff. The Marines, like the controls as a first-person shooter, it is trash. Like it does not feel good. But I suppose you could say it's serviceable. Like it works in that sense. It does have this interesting setup that I didn't realize it did, whereby you actually have to sort of complete a mission as the Marines. You're there to complete a mission, and the Predator happens to stumble upon you and try and take you out, and you can win by completing your mission. But the AI is terrible. Like the AI enemies that are trying to stop you, like the locals who are trying to shoot you, they're crap. They just sort of disappear and pop in and out of existence and just like spawn right in front of you. It's interesting, but as a free game on PlayStation Plus, it was fine. I'm glad I didn't pay for it when it came out.
It looked rough. I watched you and the boys play. It did not look good.
It was fun. It was genuinely fun to play. Like I said, as
it got slammed as well, didn't it, when it was released?
Yeah,
if I remember.
It's not good. It's not a good game. Like I'm not going to suggest
PS4
it's a good
version
game.
has a Metacritic score of 56.
But so I thought I would never play it again. I was like, I played it on stream. It was fun playing with them. I'm never going to stream it again. After we finished, I was about to shut my PlayStation off, and I was like, do you know what? Let me play one more match as the Predator. And so I did, and that was fun because they were rubbish, and I literally decimated their entire team in about 10 minutes, and then just went to bed. So that was fun, and I haven't played it since.
I think the biggest shame with games like that, that universe, the Aliens games and Predator, is that none of them have ever matched Alien versus Predator 2, which probably came out now in something mental like 1998. But that game was awesome.
It was
that
fantastic,
was so good. And none of them have matched.
But
even the new Fireteam Elite.
I think if you tried to go back now and you tried to play Alien vs Predator 2, I think gaming has moved on so far. It's actually the state of gaming, which is the problem. It's like back in because I used to play the Terminator 2 game sort of around this just before that came out, and that was like a side-scrolling arcade style, point and click game on the PC, and I was like, this is great. So I think if you could actually see, I think now that's the issue, is that it's so much harder to produce games that fit and feel, but. I would say you've led me on nicely to another game I've played, which is Aliens Fireteam Elite, which I picked up a few days ago. And that is actually, it's a much more solid experience than Predator Hunting Grounds as like a cash in on an old, IP. The way that they've incorporated things like the audio from the original game, the feel of the fire of the Marines, the way that the aliens move, the way that the game is set up. Like, I've had so much fun playing it. Like, I've played through the first act. I think it's I think it's got 5 acts that you can play through, and then you can sort of open up a wave mode. So I've only played the first act, which is probably a couple of hours because I think I didn't succeed the first time through the first missions.
Sorry, mate, have you been matchmaking or solo?
No, matchmaking. So it's kind of a weird thing because I did the matchmaking and then I played 2 of the sections of the first act, and there was a third one that I needed to play through to finish it. But I left and went back to my base to sort of change my loadout and mess around and stuff. And then when I tried to load into the third act, sort of the third part of the first act, it made me do it solo with a couple of bots, a couple of androids, and it was horrendous. Like, trying to play that on solo with a couple of bots was trash.
Is it crossplay?
Yeah, the AI is proper horrible.
Is it cross? I'm not sure if it's crossplay. I can't actually remember. But
I feel like that's an ambitious question, but I'll double check.
I was struggling I was struggling to find people to play with, and I tried a few times to find real humans to play with. So then I started from the beginning of the campaign again, thinking that maybe we could all play through the whole thing together. So I did it again. And then, unfortunately, after the second part again, the 2 people were like, oh, we're off. We're going to go do whatever else. So then I had to play through the third one with bots again. And again, it was crap. Finally managed to do it with some real humans. And we smashed through it. We had a great time and it worked much better. Just because the AI for the bots is not great. Like, it's okay. It's okay, but it's not.
I'll make a deal for you, or I'll make you an offer. I'll play through that game with you on one condition.
Yeah.
You buy it for me.
What is it, 30 quid? How much is it?
I don't know how much it is.
Maybe, I might do.
Did you buy it on your PS5?
Don't buy my friendship, Jonesy.
You bought it on PC?
Yeah, PC.
Oh, you bought it on PC?
Jonesy, I'll play with you, mate.
How much you got it?
Yeah, I've finished it.
Steph's dad is Gabe Newell. He owns every game on Steam.
Oh, of course he does. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I've got it. I finished it. It's quality.
No, yeah, definitely. I'll play for it with you, mate. That'd be great. But I loved it.
Now I feel like I need to buy it.
You do.
You're going to get left behind, Jamie.
I don't want to be left behind. Guys, I want to have fun. Let me do the fun.
For anyone who hasn't seen it yet, like, it's the way they do, like the aliens coming out the vents, the sounds of the guns is just wicked. Like, and as a massive Aliens fan of like the original movies and even some of the later like AVP sort of movies and stuff, which haven't been too bad. I like that whole thing. I like all of that stuff, and yeah, getting to play through that was pretty sick. I'm tempted to. I haven't actually looked yet, but I wonder if they do, or do they do like DLC for characters and stuff? Can you be like Vasquez or anything like that?
Oh, I haven't
seen that.
I'm literally opening up the Steam store page right now, so I can tell you in a second. But
you can dress up as Vasquez, but I don't know if you can actually be Vasquez.
So the game is £35. The DLC, there is the Endeavour Veteran Pack, which has heirloom standoff
Skins,
shotgun, a ballistic helmet. Yeah, that's a bunch of skins and emotes. There's the Wei Armory pack and the Hardened Marine pack. I don't know if like any of the characters you like are in there, but one of them has the chestburster joke emote.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
that'll be quite
I've got
cool.
that.
Have you?
Stef unsurprisingly owns all 3 bits of RPG of DLC.
And the best one, the biggest Easter egg is the look into my eye emote.
Nice.
What's the? I don't know what that is.
It's a Little Britain
It's
reference.
when
joking.
when the colonel is
I'm joking.
I was going to say that'd be weird.
he's walking up and down when they all wake up, and he's like, another day in the Marines is like a day in the farm.
Oh, right.
And then Hudson says, oh, please, sir, can you go and get my slippers? And he's just like, look into my eye. And that's all he says.
That's like the not like this line from The Matrix, which is, it was probably so innocuous when they were making it, but it's so odd and stands out so much. Like,
yeah. Look into my eye.
That's what these games need. Like that was all the only good parts about the Predator Hunting Grounds was the hark back to the movies, and it was a pretty shitty game. This has all of that, but it's also a decent game. It's such a cool wave shooter. Like I had so much fun playing it, and the weapons as well. Like getting the flamethrower, getting all like the pulse rifles, and getting those heavy smart guns that you sort of mounted to. All of that stuff is sick. Like I just want to I just want to play it more.
I do have to ask you one question then, kind of to cross a similar bridge that we had to cross in the end with Back 4 Blood. How do you come to terms with the fact that Aliens Fighting Relay is basically a Left 4 Dead game, and you don't like Left 4 Dead?
But my issues with Left 4 Dead was actually not the game. Like it wasn't the style of game. I have no problem with that sort of game. I think they're cool. My problem with Left 4 Dead was I didn't like the animations. I didn't like how they were just like almost like a homogenous mass of bad animation, and it didn't feel like you were shooting zombies. It felt like that they were just like clipping through each other and constantly, and I didn't like it. I thought it was a badly made game. But I have enjoyed many of the Left 4 Dead rip-off games, or games that have come since then. Like
I've got good news for you, Jonesy, because there's 300 still coming to come out in the next 2 years.
Yeah, so like that's not to say that Left 4 Dead, I don't mean Left 4 Dead was a bad game. A lot of people love that game. I totally get it, but for me, it lacked something. I wasn't that into it. But you know what I've played? We're going to touch on this a bit later, but THQ Nordic were celebrating their 10th anniversary, and they had a little thing on Xbox Game Pass that popped up. So I played some Desperados 3 because it was like, hey, play this cool game. And I've never played a game like Desperados 3 before, and I thought it looks quite cool. It's like a real-time action strategy game, like top-down isometric thing set in the Wild West. And I've actually been quite enjoying it. Like it's a pretty, it's got an interesting style to it. It's an interesting setup. So I think I'm going to play through a bit more of that.
Very nice. You're going to have a real tough time when you go back to work like next week, aren't you? Going from
and then
60 back down to 0, yeah.
Yeah, but it's going to be brutal. I won't have a problem, though, playing any more of Call of Duty Vanguard, the alpha, because it was crap. So I stopped playing.
It was totally fine.
That was my problem with it. It was just totally fine. It felt like any other Call of Duty multiplayer that I've played. It was uninspired.
Yeah.
Like you talked about it before. I know you were saying like, oh, it's got some like cool additional stuff, like the shooting through the wood, the going through all of that. It was by 3 minutes in, it was exactly the same as every other Call of Duty game multiplayer that I've played, and it was doing nothing for me. It felt dated in some respects, like the graphics and stuff, and the gunplay, like it didn't feel like it pushed anything.
The graphics are fantastic.
Maybe it was just me then, but I looked at that and I thought like they have not done a very good job of sorting this, of making this look like a next gen title. I felt quite uninspired by it. Maybe it was the design, the level design and stuff just felt very kind of bland.
I've not touched it. That's one game that I'll probably have to purchase. So it's a bit of a
contentious
one. Do I purchase a game?
I will get it for the single player. That's I'm quite fond of the Call of Duty single player campaigns, but the multiplayer just does nothing for me at all. I should have said that. Specifically, I'm talking about multiplayer because that's what the alpha stuff or whatever you could play was.
Yeah.
But that's it. That is what I have been playing.
Can I give you one bit of trivia, Jonesy, that I looked up while you were stumbled across, I should say, while you were talking, and I want to get your gut reaction. So
yeah, go for it.
Going back to Predator Hunting Grounds, what would you say was the inferior portion of that game?
Inferior would have been the worst part is probably going to be the AI
But like to play,
enemies.
which portion of the game was worst?
Oh, the Marines for sure.
Oh, right. And it's like a first-person kind of action, sort of a first-person shooter kind of thing, right?
It's a crap first-person shooter.
Yeah, interesting little excerpt here from Wikipedia. In 2013, Illfonic, the developers of Predator Hunting Grounds, was contracted to develop the Star Marine module and the first-person systems for the game Star Citizen. The game's developer, Cloud Imperium Games, planned to integrate these assets into the main game. However, after 1 year of work, discrepancies in the scales of the two studios' assets were found, making them incompatible. Illfonic continued working on Star Citizen, and their work was nearly completed by August 2015. That month, Illfonic laid off 6 developers, including the ones working on Star Citizen.
Do you know what I thought you were going to say, which I was like, oh no, don't say that, was that they worked on Evolve. And that
they did.
Did they?
They didn't make Evolve, but this the basically their evolution is like they basically made a weird independent game that THQ published called like Nexuiz. I don't really know how to pronounce it. Then they helped with development on Crysis 3 and Evolve, and then after Evolve,
did they do the first person? Does it say if they did the first person shooting stuff for Evolve? Because I thought that was quite solid in Evolve. So if they made that,
the only thing, so Wikipedia lists Evolve under their supportive development category, and the reference is to a Gama Sutra or Gamer Sutra article from when they're hiring. That presumably mentions it in there. But the thing they did after Evolve and Predator Hunting Grounds was another janky yet kind of like loved asymmetric multiplayer game, Friday the 13th. That was them as well.
Ah, okay. Right.
That actually's gone down quite well, that game. Oh, is it that game?
It's the one. It's the one.
I quite liked it.
I think I'm thinking of Death by Daylight or Dead by Daylight.
See, that's the good Friday the 13th game that's got all the licensed characters in it.
I thought Friday the 13th I thought was all right. Like I played
it was
right.
janky, but it was kind of cool when it all worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just a bit technically all over the place.
But Predator Hunting Grounds I think is not it's not something I'm probably going to dip back into.
I just thought that was a funny observation.
That is brutal. Like, come on, man. Don't do this.
To be fair, they finished work on it 6 years ago. Cloud Imperium could have remade the entire FPS element since then.
I always found that really odd that they even had, because they actually had like first person shooter, like you could go and do almost like an arena style thing in Star Citizen, and I always found that odd, bizarre. It's like that is going to be the least good part of that game to my mind, because it's a game all about flying spaceships. It's a sim. Like, why are you going to include that element? And it kind of worried me a bit back then. It worries me a little bit more now to hear that they were working with Phonic to try and do it. But Star Citizen aside, let's move on to someone else who's having some more problems, because we're going to talk about Activision Blizzard, who, as I'm sure everyone is aware, have been having issue after issue after issue, and this week is no different, because it was announced that their entertainment chief legal officer Claire Hart announced that she had left the company on September 17th. So what's that? Just going back to last weekend. Never good when one of your top lawyers leaves the company. That's probably not a good sign of.
It was via a LinkedIn message as well, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. She sort of did the typical, I've had a great time working here. The company's been through twists and turns, and everyone's like, wow, that's an understatement. But there's also been some more developments at Activision Blizzard as well, because this week, so the Securities and Exchange Commission are actually investigating them, and I think it was this week that it came out that they have subpoenaed a number of former employees and current employees, and included it in the former employees is Bobby Kotick, and that is to investigate sort of the mishandling of sexual misconduct claims inside the company. They're also facing another 3 lawsuits currently. One is for enabling a culture of harassment. They're also being sued by their investors, effectively for hiding how serious all of this stuff going on inside the company was. And the investors are obviously saying that they wouldn't have, or they maybe would have changed how they invested had they known all this stuff was going on and had been mishandled. And then Blizzard or Activision will release another Call of Duty, and the investors will be like,
Good job.
Thank you.
We're glad we invested when we did, because we are now rich because you have sold so many copies of Call of Duty.
Did you guys see the thing where there was the beta when it first came out, like they didn't have Activision's logo at the beginning of it, and then they added it back in after the fact, like once things had cooled down. Yeah, there were like versions of trailers as well, versions of trailers for Vanguard that didn't have the Activision name at the beginning.
That's so bad, because maybe it's the association. They didn't want people to think of, they just wanted you to think of Call of Duty.
Yeah.
But yeah, so do you believe all the things that are coming out that people are saying, like this is the death knell for Activision Blizzard? Or is this just a little blip?
No. I don't think it's anywhere near the death of Activision Blizzard. I think they're too big. They're too big and they have too much money.
Yeah.
It's all in the press at the moment, but it'll get swept under the rug.
Yeah.
They release a new Call of Duty. They release Overwatch 2.
Although Overwatch 2 is in the shit as well. Did you see the executive producer who was meant to be like the guy who was going to steer the ship after Jeff Kaplan left? He is now suddenly left as well. So, like, I don't know what the fuck's going on with Overwatch 2, but that feels like a game that no one wants to play and is in no hurry to come out.
There is a weird possibility that, because obviously we're saying as long as they keep releasing games like Call of Duty, etc., people will suddenly it'll be okay. If they find themselves in a position whereby the fans, in any real capacity, boycott any of the games, then I think that could start to be actually serious for them. Like, it is obviously serious when top level people leave the company, but at the end of the day, they can just replace those people. They can, like you said, Steph, they can kind of sweep it under the rug in the future and they can sort of move on. But yeah, it doesn't seem like they're in a very good place at all at the moment.
I think when it comes to fans, I think it applies here the same as it applied, or when we discussed it with EA, Respawn, and the fans of Titanfall, that there's going to be a very small percentage of fans that will think, I'm never buying a Blizzard Activision game again. Yeah. But the majority of players are still going to go out and buy Call of Duty. They're still going to play the big titles. They're still going to subscribe to their World of Warcraft accounts.
Yeah, and they'll almost be like we're saying about the FIFA people. They'll be on one tweet, they'll be sort of slamming them, and then they'll be buying the games and not even thinking about it.
And they'll think, oh yeah, I hate myself because I'm supporting this tyranny of Blizzard Activision.
Do you remember, it was a few weeks ago, we talked about the BioShock Infinite story, where Ken Levine talked about how he had to go and talk to sort of like different groups to do like research ahead of BioShock Infinite. And like he was put in front of like groups of like college kids and stuff like that, who were all kind of like identified as gamers to try and ask them about stuff. And like none of them had heard of BioShock. And then he ended up using the weird salad cream analogy of like, I eat salad cream every day, but I don't subscribe to salad cream weekly.
Right.
I think Call of Duty is like the boilerplate example of that, like Steph is saying, which is that like the number of people who will buy Call of Duty, or at least be interested in buying Call of Duty at any one time, is so much bigger than the amount of people that probably even know that this is going on, that it can't really have a serious impact on sales. With regards to like, I don't know enough about the way these lawsuits work and the reach of like the Securities and Exchange Commission to say how damaging that could be for them as a company. But I also agree with what you kind of just said, which is that like there's probably not a fine big enough to derail a multi-billion-dollar company, and there's probably no single person within that company structure that's irreplaceable. Certainly not from a creative standpoint, where Call of Duty's made by a different studio every once every 3 years, with about 10 other studios supporting them. Like there are people there to make those games. So it's like, it's really hard to see this having long-term effects. And also, games are fickle, right? Like, we really like games, we like being excited, and Blizzard can, as Chris has shown us over the years, tug on the heartstrings with some of the bits of intellectual property and the licenses and the franchises they can draw from. Obviously, a lot of that stuff is already in the works because there is another Diablo coming and there is another Overwatch coming and stuff like that. But like, I don't know, like if they made, let's say they came out like they wanted to do a BlizzCon in 2 years' time, let's say, give them a little bit of time for the heat to cool off, and they came out and said, we're doing Warcraft 4, like RTS Warcraft 4. The volume of people that would be too excited about that to pay attention to this is
monumental difference.
Yeah, exactly.
There's almost a weird irony in that it almost allows them to, because the way that the media coverage portrays it is that they're in trouble, or it's a real big thing going on. But then the reality of the situation, like we'll talk about when the story's a bit later on, the amount of money which changes hands when it comes to even small parts of the gaming industry, let alone something like Activision Blizzard, is so monumental that you might even get a weird situation whereby the media side of it makes it seem like a massive big thing. In reality, it's a much smaller impact on the company. But then because of the media impact, when they come good again in a year, 2 years time, when they sort of have an upward swing and they seem to be doing much better, it might even do them. It might even be a benefit to them in the future, because then the media swing will be on the up. They didn't really get a hit from the financial side, because even if they're fined, even if the lawsuits come off, these things are going to be a drop in the bucket compared to how much money that they have the potential to make from all the games they release. You might even find in a couple of years' time, it's not a positive for them, but they're then, heralded as, oh, Activision Blizzard, the company that really turned it around and really fixed their ways and actually did like a lot better and actually now have a much better structure and they work in a much more, a positive way. And you might start to see them as a company that other people point at and say they did the right thing. Which is definitely something they could do, like almost like a comeback story, if you like.
And then it's a matter of time before gamers start getting angry at them for doing the right thing, where you get like a Rockstar situation where the work circumstances and the way employees were treated at Rockstar was so dreadful that at certain points, like during the development of Red Dead Redemption, the wives were gathering up to make clubs where they went and took mass complaints to Rockstar about how much time their husbands were spending at work and the overtime and the burnout. And now Rockstar haven't released a game in one too many years. The clock started ticking, and gamers are angry again, because actually we will accept burnout and depression if that means we can get our products. Please take my money.
Yeah. Where is GTA 6? No, absolutely.
Where is GTA 6? I'm getting angry that you're not selling me my product. Please, please, please shorten the lives of more developers to make it happen sooner.
Yeah, but it's terrible. I am no better than any other gamer out there who's like, where's this, where's that? Every time E3 rolls around and you don't see something you're expecting or you really want, it's like, where the hell is it? And then that inevitably a conversation with Jamie was like, dude, do you know how many games that company's making at the moment? I'm like, I don't care. I want what I want. Bring it out now.
The Titanfall 3 developers at Respawn should be sleeping under their desks.
Yeah. Yeah, what do they need to do? Go home? No, they
Commute time is coding time. Make them sleep in the office.
All they need is those little pods like you have in Japan where you just slide in, go to sleep, slide out, carry on working.
I can't remember where I watched it, but there's a documentary about the making of the first Gran Turismo, and literally Japanese developers who have a pillow and a duvet in the footwell of their desk. It's fucking depressing. But that was
brutal,
especially in Japan where that was the culture, and it was there was no questioning. It was cool, done for the day. Just gonna crawl up under my desk and sleep for 4 hours.
That's mental.
I've never felt like I've never been in a position of crunch where I felt I had to that it was expected that you would just work insane hours. Only one time in my life did I ever feel like that, and I think I was working on the what are they even called? The Europe Music Awards for MTV, and I worked all night doing until 6 a.m, and I'd worked all day the previous day.
Jesus.
And they basically were and I think I said, I've got to go home. I'm going to die. I'm going to pass out. And they said, okay, but you need to be back at work in an hour and a half. And I was kind of
I'd be
that. I'd have probably quit.
I was like, I don't understand what you mean. I thought it was a joke. I thought they were actually joking, and they weren't joking. They were being deadly serious.
My longest shift I've done at a job is 27 hours.
20, Jesus Christ, that's
as a shift.
Hours.
I mean, it's impossible, right?
Yeah, that was in retail. I started a morning shift. We had to do the refit of the store overnight, and then 9 o'clock came round and the store opened, and I didn't leave till 11 midday.
I think mine is actually similar, where it was a weird one. It was to make a video around Stef, I don't know if you worked with us at the time, but to make a video around the Mortal Kombat 11 launch party, to make a vlog kind of thing. Basically we got invited to the it was either the launch party of the game or No, it was like the gameplay launch of the game. So they booked out this nightclub in London, had a big party, like showed the gameplay on a big screen, the food and drinks, and then you could go up and play and capture gameplay early. And so we were
I think I was there. Was Big Nasty there as well? We played the punching machine.
No, so that was when the game was coming out. That was a separate event. But yeah, that was where Big Nasty was there and that big tall guy who's not as strong as me.
And Jamie broke the machine.
and I broke one of those machines that you have to punch to test your strength. This was before that when they were revealing the gameplay. And it was a nightclub in, I want to say it was in Camden. I don't really remember. But yeah, because it was like this thing of like, oh, well, we're going to go to this event. We're going to finish this event and have gameplay of this brand new thing at like 11 p.m. that's not embargoed. Like, what do we do? So we made an agreement where I would come back. I would do an overnighter editing it, hand it off to Chris, and then I would go home that morning and have the rest of that day to sleep. But I want to say I didn't leave until like 11:30. So let's call it a 26-hour day.
I think those ones though feel almost like it's a little bit different when you're working on your own like channel and stuff. Because when we went to E3, that felt like we did 3 days nonstop. Like that was hectic.
That was the least, the most annoyed I've ever been that the fun of a place I was in and the novelty of a place I was in was being disrupted by work.
Like that was mad. The amount we had to edit and work and stream and stuff was horrendous for E3. But that felt more like we were kind of in control of a horrendous situation. Whereas I think it's a bit different if like these developers go to work and then effectively are told, no, you don't have any weekends. You will be here for like these hours and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because I think it kind of takes the control away from you and it just must make you feel like crap. Especially with these guys, they know that they're working for months. And then, imagine if the game gets delayed that you're working on. For us, it's like, yeah, delay it, get the game finished. For them, it's like, I just want this to finish. I just want this crunch to end.
I was telling Jonesy, it's not crunch, but I was just telling Jonesy before we started recording that I'm working on a video project at the moment that originally we were hoping to put out on Monday, and we realized Monday was too ambitious, and we so extended it, and now it's, at the time of recording, it's Thursday, and the video is going out tomorrow. And so so we delayed it and still used the entirety of every day we bought, all the time we bought with the delay. And that's what happens with delays. It's not like you buy yourself an extra 6 months so you can, spend 3 months working and 3 months dilly-dallying. You buy yourself that time and you use that time mostly still crunching. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. And this often you end up doing more as well. You're like, well, we didn't have time to do that, so we weren't going to do it. But now we do have time to do it because we've just delayed it. So now we're going to add that back into the mix. And you're like, please don't. I don't want to play that game.
Yeah, horrible.
But let's move on and let's talk about something.
Jonesy, are there any news stories out there that surround developers with great and friendly, family-friendly working environments for people of all ages and genders and worldviews and just any studios with just zero controversy out there that are making any cool projects? I need to I need something to brighten up my day.
It's funny you ask, Jamie, because there is indeed, and this is the story that Quantic Dream we're not 100%. What would Chris say? A confirmed rumor. Is it that? I think it's to that level, confirmed rumor. They seem to be making a Star Wars game. Now, everyone gets excited when they hear the word Star Wars attached to game. There are billions of them already, but we can never have enough. We always want more. So the initial report is from DualShockers and have been corroborated by Kotaku, so that's why we say it's a confirmed rumor, that the developer behind Detroit Become Human and Heavy Rain have been working on the project for about 18 months. So this is not like they're thinking about doing it, they're actually working on it. And the rumors at the moment are that it's going to be potentially an open world Star Wars game. And it is not going to be sort of similar to the games they've made in the past. It's not going to be sort of like quick time event driven, but it is going to be a proper action game and possibly in an open world, which sounds too good to be true. I'm sure it's not going to be as amazing as it sounds because that would be too good. The open world Star Wars game always blows my mind because I'm like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to play in that world. I want it to be a sandbox, but
yeah. Like it feels like between Battlefront and Jedi Fallen Order and stuff like that, like the real open world thing that if it feels like they've cancelled more of those games than they've released in the last 10 years. It feels like the one thing we're missing so far is like an open world, preferably third person action adventure Star Wars game that would set the world on fire if done right, but just no one's pulled the trigger yet. I don't know if this is that, but
I think it might be impossible.
Do you think that if they're pulling the trigger on this now, it's people haven't pulled the trigger on it yet because it's just such a risk, because there are just so many people in the world that love that IP, and if you bodge it, you're not going to live it down.
I think it's a Star Citizen as well. Like the game is potentially like an open world Star Wars game. If you tie in like flying in space, fighting in TIE fighters and X-Wings, landing on planets, using lightsabers, using blasters, like droids, it's a creating a universe, which is why I think no one's actually managed to do it yet.
You wonder on that point, Jonesy, if we end up getting the games we get, because it's almost like they start with a blank canvas. They make the observation that you just made. They think to themselves, right, for our sakes and the sake of the game itself, we need to narrow our focus down. And then they end up almost inadvertently ending up on the path towards another linear game, because that's just what makes sense. Because there's just a lot of Star Wars out there. Planets, races, battles, vehicles, weapons, paths, and the type of character you are, whether you're a Jedi or a bounty hunter or what have you. Like, there's a lot of different routes you can go. I don't know about.
I don't think there needs to be an open world Star Wars game.
There does, man.
Would you not like one in your lifetime?
I think playing a heavy amount of the Old Republic. I know it's not quite an action adventure game. It's got the MMO mechanics. That was pretty close to being an open world Star Wars game. I loved Jedi Fallen Order because it had a really good story and it was polished. But then I also, thinking back, looking at things like Jedi Academy and Dark Forces 2 and Jedi Outcast, that kind of thing, that they were, again, very linear, but they were such good games.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Force Unleashed as well. I liked 1 and 2. And like you say, all the Jedi Knight games are fantastic. But I don't know, man. I love the idea of an open world Star Wars game. I understand it gets insanely tricky because you can't just have an open world. You have to have open worlds, right? You want to be planet hopping. How do you tie that into it? Do you take out the ship element? Do you take out the flying element? Do you make it so that it's a world hopping open world game whereby you're maybe limited in what you can do? So that you almost like, if you imagine like a GTA as an open world game, if you said, all right, now you can fly spaceships to other planets, that kind of sounds mad. But if you almost had cities on multiple worlds, that I think would be open world enough in the Star Wars universe. I think you could have like wasn't there supposed to be like a Boba Fett open world game where he could travel to different places? Like, that's a way you could do that. You could have open worlds connected together by, I don't know how you traverse those, but you could link them all together. Like, I think that's a more doable thing.
What about like taking it, like even stripping it back one step further? Bear with me here, bit of an elevator pitch. Stef, I need you to chime in as well. Imagine Cyberpunk 2077, but make it the game that, let's say for the sake of argument, the game people thought it was going to be, right, as opposed to the game that it ultimately was.
You've immediately gone for like, make an impossible game.
No, I don't think it's that impossible. I don't think it's that impossible.
8 years.
If it was,
they can do it.
Okay, well, just bear with me. Third person perspective, so more like The Witcher 3. Because I just feel like that's I don't know. And
I know what you mean. You need that in the Star Wars
Take
universe.
that city that they go to in like the prequels, that's like a Blade Runner city with the flying cars and stuff like that.
Oh, right, yeah.
Coruscant,
yeah, sure. Like, so focus on like a large open urban area, like a city from one of the planets that's slightly more. What are we talking about then? Like, is that something, Steph? Does that sway you from your "we don't need an open world Star Wars game" stance? Would you like to buy an apartment on Coruscant and find a stray cat and bring it home, and maybe I think if they ever did a pre-order jacket from your wardrobe?
Oh, I wouldn't mind a pre-order jacket.
Yeah, I see now.
That would be pretty cool, and I wouldn't mind going back to Gamescom and sitting in a dark room looking at a preview either. But I think if they go down that kind of route, I would much prefer it to be hub worlds of places that are popular within the Star Wars universe. So as you said, you had Coruscant, where you could land and you could run around and you could go to multiple levels of Coruscant. And then if you wanted to, you jump in your ship and you fly over to Tatooine and you land at Mos Eisley, and then you got the cantina and all the sand streets there. And then you jump over and you can go and land at, I don't know, Endor, for example. And there are things to do there as well. And just rather than having just one huge open space, it's almost very much like Tomb Raider was quite like, actually, where it was very much bottlenecked. So you're bottlenecked by the flying, but then you open up into this big space. But I'm talking much bigger than like what Tomb Raider offered.
I suppose, you know what's funny is you could almost, if you were careful about where in the Star Wars universe you picked the places you could go, you could actually almost do yourself, a massive favor, because if you say like Tatooine, right, you'd want to go to Tatooine, you want to be able to go there, and maybe you could even do like the pod racing stuff could be there, blah blah blah. Yeah, you could have a procedurally generated world that you don't really have to mess around with too much because it's mostly desert. Now hold on, Jamie, because I know I'm going to put the two things together. You have your hub where it's carefully crafted, it looks really good, it works really well. But then to create the scale of Star Wars, you then, outside of the Tatooine city, you then have procedurally generated like desert, whatever, because it doesn't matter. It's just a desert.
Isn't this Star Citizen?
No, because Star Citizen.
This is more No Man's Sky.
This is more No Man's Sky, I suppose, in some sense.
It also sounds a bit like what's it? Fucking Beyond Good and Evil 2. Weren't they going to do some shit like that?
See, that's a good example, because they talked about having a few different worlds on that game rather than, again, just this ridiculously
and they were going to use procedural generation, weren't they? So the planets were planets.
But the difference with like Star Citizen or with No Man's Sky is they use the procedural generation to like make a whole planet. I'm saying you don't make the whole planet. You craft a city, like a much smaller city than what you were saying is, Coruscant. But you craft a city and then you procedurally generate the world around it, so you can still get the feeling of like I can fly to the planet and I can interact with it. But you also need to make, I don't even know, like 6 or 7 specific planet locations you can fly to, as like Stef was listing off. You don't need to make 1,000 planets that you can go wherever you want. And you kind of create the illusion of an open universe-y kind of world, Star Wars world. It's still going to be too bloody big, because then you've got the battle cruisers, the space fighting.
Yeah, because people are going to want that included as well. They're going to want to. They're going to want to go to space, and they're going to want to own their own Death Star.
Which is where, like, to go back to Quantic Dream, that's where I get a little bit like, I think it's cool that Quantic Dream might be given the opportunity to do something else, because with Detroit Become Human especially, it became obvious that technically they were making very impressive games and very pretty games, but still the single biggest thing holding them back was David Cage and his writing, his scripts and his ideas. And so, like, a new idea and a new approach and a new IP for them could be awesome, but, like, can they just jump straight into, like, making, like, action gameplay from like a Detroit or a Heavy Rain? I don't
think so.
I don't know. We'll
see, in my mind, if you say to me, what is a Quantic Dream Star Wars game, I think it's the complete opposite to like an open world game. It's a massively scripted, like linear narrative of where they craft a story in that uniose. It doesn't. The open
you
world
play as a young Jedi whose brother drowned when you were young as well, and you're trying to figure out who is killing all the Sith and leaving origami figures on it. And to do so, you use a high-tech visor given to you by Jango Fett that lets you see things in AR.
It's given to you by the little creature that comes to rescue Han Solo in episode 6. That has a thermal detonator. That's like, oh, no.
Yeah. Then you say,
and you have to protect and sort of like go complete the whole story, like accompanying a little child Ewok, and it turns out they were a robot the whole time. Spoilers for Detroit Become Human, but that little rat is a robot as well.
I've never played that game. Now there's no need to play that game.
Hey, guess what, Steph? It basically, do you remember the question that Blade Runner dared to ask, which is that like, how can you judge androids if you can't even tell if the person that's exactly what the fucking twist of Detroit Become Human is as well. It's like this person was an android the whole time. Now you don't really know how you feel about androids.
But the problem is with Quantic Dream is, I don't get me wrong, their games I think are very well done, but they're quite clunky as well. Like in the way they tell the story, they're not slick. They are very much of a heavy-handed, clunky kind of like, did you get that point in the story? And you're like, yeah, man, I got it. Like, thanks for that. Like, okay, cool.
And then David
isn't Oh, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, and then David Cage becomes so paranoid that you're not going to get it that he motion captures himself into the game and says, "I'm David Cage, and this is me. I'm going to tell you about the story that I have made for you."
Like Detroit, because I stopped playing Detroit because it was one of those games where I enjoyed it for like the first, I think like half it, I enjoyed it. But then it did get to the point where I'm like, they're really ramming this moral dilemma down my throat. Like, can't I just play the game and sort of stumble upon the morality in the game rather than it being slammed into my face at every opportunity?
No.
Androids are people too. Like, okay, I get it. Calm down.
It's like, what's that meme? It's from the show. It's like, is it Garth Marenghi's Dark Place or something like that? And there's a quote from that show, and it's like something like, "I know writers who use subtext, and they're all cowards." There's no subtext. There is only text.
If you said to me like a Heavy Rain, if you said, "Oh, you know, the guys who made Heavy Rain are making a Star Wars game," I can see how that could be cool. And if you said the guys who are making Detroit Become Human are making a Star Wars game, like I can see how that could be cool. Like that kind of works. But it's when you say open world action elements, multiplayer elements that I've said as well, I'm kind of like, oh, because the action elements of those games, interesting. That's going to be interesting.
Interesting's a word for it.
Interesting. All right, should we move on to a brief little mention we've got here, because there's not really much else we can say about it. But EA, you know, the thing EA love to do is they love to buy everything. They are, you know, they're kind of hoarders. They like to collect everything together. And so they've recently, what did you think I said?
No, so I looked at my phone without realizing, spoiler alert, but without realizing what. Don't go on Twitter, whatever you do. Don't go on Twitter.
Oh no!
There's a Nintendo Direct happening as we're recording this, and one of the elements of the Direct has got me so. I thought I was hallucinating when I was reading it. It's fucking bizarre. But I want to get your guys' live reaction to it now that I've spoiled it for myself. So don't look.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm not going to look.
No, it's not crazy. It's not like a game you never expected to get a sequel. It's just like something very funny around a project that's coming up. It's kind of like, oh, wow. Okay. That's kind of fascinating. Let's see how that turns out.
Oh, okay. Cool. So this story is the EA have bought Playdemic, which is a British game developer who specialise in mobile games. So they are the guys who make Golf Clash, the mobile series, which has millions of players, a massive install base, is worth a bloody fortune. And that is why they spent $1.4 billion buying Playdemic, a company that you've probably never heard of and a game you might not have ever played if you're anything like me. But given how much money those mobile games can, you know, how much money they can produce, how much profit they can make, I suppose we shouldn't be that surprised that it cost them that much money. What is surprising, and Jamie gave us a nice little juxtapose for this, is that when they bought Codemasters, EA, they actually only paid $1.2 billion for it. And they make F1, a game that we were talking about earlier because Stef is all over that, playing with Jamie on a Wednesday. Go check it out on Twitch. And they also make Dirt and Grid. So they spent less money on that than they've done on this British mobile developer, which is kind of crazy.
Didn't they also recently spend another something $1 billion on a basketball game developer as well?
Oh, I did. Yeah, I saw they did spend some more money or something, but
that's another mobile game about basketball.
Oh, really?
I think this is
they're spending horrific amounts of money.
They're obviously trying to expand into, you know, maybe specifically sport, but mobile games specifically, and they're trying to get a nice chunk of that change.
This calendar year, they have bought Codemasters for $1.2 billion. Glue Mobile for $2.4 billion.
Yeah, that was it. Glue Mobile.
Glue. I didn't even see that one.
Yeah,
they
bought Glue in April. And now Playdemic for $1.4 billion.
Oh,
they also bought a Canadian developer called Metalhead Software, but they no value listed and they don't have a Wikipedia page. So But yeah,
This is
That's
maybe
because they're too embarrassed of how little they actually got. And we bought this studio for 150
do you
quid.
want to know how much EA bought Respawn for? And admittedly, this was a few years ago, different market. But Respawn,
10 billion.
315 million. A third of a billion, Steph. Respawn, developers of the Titanfall series, Apex Legends, and Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, cost a fraction.
Do you know what? I'm going to say it.
Of what the Golf Clash lads are worth.
It's immoral. It's absolutely immoral. Mobile games companies are just there to steal your money and leech off of you, and they're not good games, and they are filth. And then,
if I could code mobile apps, I will be coding simple shit apps left, right, and centre to sell advertising.
do you know what? I actually tweeted about this a while ago because I was so annoyed because I was what? Do you know what it was? No, it was Facebook. Sorry, it wasn't Twitter. I was always getting ads for games that looked okay and like looked quite fun. And then I'd read the comments. Every time I'd read the comments, and the people would say, "Don't waste your time. The game is nothing like they've suggested it is in this video." And it always makes me ask the question: they're going to make a shit ton of money. Like if they made the game in the video, just make the goddamn game in the video. Why make a crap game and then make a good video?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Raid Shadow Legends.
Is that? I've never played Raid. Is Raid actually is Raid alright, or is it really bad?
No, it's pants.
Oh, no.
It's so bad. But the adverts are always like
Steph,
clashing swords, mythical creatures
I've got to
doing
warn you,
battle.
Steph, we've got some committed Raid Shadow Legends players in our community, so careful. Don't tread on any toes.
Sorry, SuperShow community.
You just got blacklisted.
I know. Never again. Oh, I won't be back nearly a year to the day.
And you'll also never get a sponsorship from Raid Shadow Legends, which is
I know.
That's
Sorry, Raid.
If I could,
Very lucrative.
if I could touch a button and delete like most of the mobile games out there, I would do it.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Most of them are going to be absolutely crap.
If I had the NFT rights,
80%.
if I had the non-fungible token rights to like shitloads of mobile games, I own the licensing, I would wipe them out of existence.
You absolutely would. You would be a very rich man, Jonesy, if you had that.
Don't care. And I'd make people's lives better. I'd say, go and play a proper game, you idiot. Stop playing golf.
Yeah, but that's the thing. They make proper games for mobile and no one plays them. Apple made a subscription service to incentivize people to play proper mobile games, and no one subscribed to it.
Yeah,
Stop playing mobile games on your phone.
No one wanted to subscribe, so people wanted to play. People want to play easy crap games like Candy Crush on the train.
I'm not going to agree with you. Steph's right. That is what they want to play, but I don't agree with you, Jonesy, that the solution is to stop making phone games. Phone games, in some cases, are phenomenal. I want to think about my first times playing like Florence or Monument Valley. Like those are great games that were well suited to the mobile platform.
Those sorts of games are fine. Like if you've got a game that fits a platform and it works on mobile and it works well, like I totally get that. It's the ones that are just time sinks, which are nothing, and all there are psychological traps so that you force you to replay and replay. And especially the ones that then get you to all the advertising in the game is for another game, and then if you get that game, it's just full of advertising for another
Jonesy,
game.
If I pull this stick out, then the lava falls on the gold, and if the gold melts in the lava, then I can't complete the level. I have to pull the stick out that makes the water fall in the lava, so that the lava disappears. Then I can pour the gold out safely, and if I avoid the Minotaur, then I'm definitely going to complete the puzzle. Exactly,
bloody exactly. Right. Let's move on.
I don't mind mobile. Actually, I want to mention one particular mobile game because it wasn't really linked to a developer or like one of these big conglomerate companies. It was Flappy Bird. Okay. And the guy who earned so much money off of Flappy Bird. Oh my God, it made him so rich. Okay, it was full of advertisers, but stories like that is just one bloke who wanted to make a game. Okay, he deleted the game afterwards because he got so much hate and lawsuits or whatever else came from Nintendo. But still, those kind of stories are like, yes, that is awesome.
But Flappy Bird, I don't mind because Flappy Bird is like, oh, dude, made a game. It was addictive. People played it. Well, at least when it, like, I don't know what state it was in by the end of it, but it didn't feel like a game that was just trying to squeeze every last penny out of you. It was like,
no, it wasn't. It made its revenue off of pop-up ads like all mobile apps do, but it didn't have anything like you have to buy 10 gems to unlock this particular thing to move on to the next level.
I'd even give it to
most
Angry
games
Birds.
do.
Like the first iteration of Angry Birds was a great mobile game. I loved that. I thought it was great. It didn't ram down through. It was a cool thing. It's the more modern like mobile games that
They've got a formula.
You know, they have got a formula and they're horrible. They're trash.
Yeah.
But there are some good ones out there. So I won't delete all of them if I get them.
I think mobile phone games like that will end up becoming obsolete once internet connections become much faster, much cheaper, and you can start playing things like I can't remember what it's called. xCloud?
Right, yeah.
Right, whatever you want, wherever you want, kind of thing.
Xbox streaming service, that kind of thing. I think the internet signals aren't there to make them viable game.
Is this your PSA of you telling everyone to download the Google Stadia app?
No, absolutely not.
Have you been
I don't know,
paid?
actually. Do you get anything out of downloading Google Stadia apps? Are any of your followers Google Stadia
we've got an affiliate link for Google
fans?
Stadia. Every time someone signs up, we get 5p and a free copy of Farming Simulator 2019.
Go and download it. Everyone go and download it. But no, I think mobile phone games like Clash of Clans and Raid and things like that will eventually disappear once streaming services get better.
Do you know what? I can go for that. I hope you're right. But talking about companies that will probably disappear at some point in the future, a company that hasn't disappeared for at least 10 years, THQ Nordic celebrated their 10th anniversary with a little stream last week.
Well, that's a weird statement considering whilst they have been around for 10 years, they did at one point change their name to reincorporate the name of a different company that did die very badly, like over 10 years ago. So,
wow, but we're being all positive at this point in the show because there's been too much negativity.
Sorry.
So we'll just blitz through this briefly. Because the only reason I really wanted to talk about this is because Destroy All Humans 2 Reprobed has been announced, which I'm super psyched for because I loved the first one. I thought it was bloody brilliant, and I replayed it when it came out again and had a great time doing so. This time, Reprobed, it's set in the 60s, so you get to probe people flying around with a bunch of hippies talking to you and the man still trying to get... what's his name?
Oh, fuck. I can
What's
hear
the
the
alien
voice.
man
I can hear the alien's voice as well. The one
I sound like Jack Nicholson.
I'm thinking of the one who's like his boss who tells him what to do. It's like Crypto?
Crypto.
Crypto?
Oh, I should remember that, shouldn't I?
You should, yeah. Cryptocurrency man over there. Crypto's back, and this time he's in the 60s and he's going to be destroying all the humans again. We saw a bit of gameplay and a cinematic trailer. Looks like they've sort of taken what they did in the first game and they've ramped it up to 11 and they've added in some like new abilities and some new ways to mess with people, blow stuff up. Some of the particle effects from destroying buildings looks on point. It's quite nice as well when you get a remaster like we had, I think it was a year ago, for the original. It's quite nice to then be able to see the development from that to this because it just sort of it looks very in keeping with the original, but it also looks like they've really taken it to what's capable on systems these days, which is I'm looking forward to.
The environments are much more diverse. Where I think like the Destroy Humans was like about like various parts of America and kind of like you're starting kind of like hillbillies and farms and like fucking zapping the brains out of cows and you're going up to like bigger cities and stuff like that. But this one I think goes to like places like their version of like London and San Francisco and even a place that's based on so all kinds of that environmental variety sounds like it also just looks nice and shiny. Like it does, there'll be a native PS5 version by the sounds of things, and I'm sure that'll be a pretty looking version of the game for anyone not on PC. So
yeah, looks pretty sick. They also announced they're doing Outcast 2, A New Beginning. I do not remember Outcast 1 because it was 22 years ago.
I've never heard of Outcast 1.
I mean, it looks okay if you like Avatar crossed with Horizon Zero Dawn. And
one thing I was really confused about that game is that they showed off all of these lush green landscapes, and as soon as they kind of hit with some sneaky gameplay, the guy jumped down and he whacked the robot. I was just like, it just looks so cartoony on this green, lush, good-looking backdrop.
They did
and then this Fortnite guy came out with his hammer.
Hammer and a shield.
With some cheesy lines as well. I was just like, oh, come on. Be serious.
It's weird when they do that because I would have. Is this a game that has any nostalgia that's going to bring people to playing it again? Like I've never heard of the original, and it's not something that made me immediately go, oh yeah, that game. So maybe there are people out there who can't wait to get their hands on Outcasts to a new beginning.
Yeah, the original came out in 1999. It was a PC game. It looks like.
I don't even remember it.
It got a 9 out of 10 from Eurogamer at the time, and an 8.6 from GameSpot, and an 8.5 from IGN. So it was a very well received game.
Yeah.
That
in 1999.
In 1999, yes.
I was 10.
I was 6. What's your excuse, Jonesy?
I don't think I'm playing.
Yeah,
about 15. Yeah.
But again, it's one of those things, right? Where, unless you were playing a lot of PC games at the time, and maybe playing close attention. I don't know.
Yeah, must have.
I'm reading stuff here. It was named GameSpot called it Adventure Game of the Year. So clearly it made a splash. It's just something that kind of faded into obscurity enough in the years since then that.
That's so interesting to me. They've chosen to maybe it's just they already own the IP and they like the idea of it, and they were sort of saying if we're going to make a game that looks like this, we might as well base it on an IP that already exists.
That definitely
maybe they're pulling a. Maybe they're pulling an EA and they're thinking, "Oh my god, we've got such shit games coming out. What can we do?" Like Respawn might do for Titanfall 3 in the future if any of their games flop.
They did also announce
THQ did the same.
MX versus ATV Legends, which looks like a lot of fun. Everyone loves a bit of off-road madness, so it looks exactly like what you'd expect. So there you go.
I literally wrote on my notes. Where is it? MXV. Looks like every other MX game out there. Bikes are more exciting than the cars, obviously, because they didn't show much of driving in an ATV in that trailer. No. It was all about being on a bike.
They also showed a couple of other games, was it the Rome one and a few other things? They're clicky history games, and I didn't even bother writing them down. I was like, okay,
yeah. It was a really weird stream where we were talking about this before we went live, but it's they've clearly, for example, with their Nickelodeon stuff, they've clearly got things that are super relevant to people's nostalgia, and that's hitting a lot of the right buttons. But they've also got things Superpower 3 and Jagged Alliance 3 and Expeditions Rome. And it's I'm sure it's for someone, but
hey, I'm not quite sure who.
Yeah.
Although
I wrote down for Superpower, probably a menu-based game. Great for Bab.
Very good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very true as well.
But yeah, that's what that reminded me of. Is just you'll just be reading menus.
I think you're exactly right.
Crusade or whatever. Crusader Kings in space.
Kings and Stellaris was the other one.
Yeah.
For the final game they showed off, which was SpongeBob SquarePants: The Cosmic Shake, I just wrote down a game people will pretend to be into, so other people believe they're younger than they are.
Wow, that's damning.
But, I think maybe it's my age, but when people talk about SpongeBob, I'm like,
yeah, I don't get it.
What the fuck? How old are you? And then they go, yeah, you love Sponge. I don't even get the memes, SpongeBob memes. I'm like, please put them away.
Yeah, I'd love to be a contrarian at a point like this and make an argument against what you just said, but SpongeBob passed me by as well. I wasn't a Nickelodeon kid at all, by a long shot.
I was a Nickelodeon kid growing up, but I was past kind of the cartoon stage when I hit Nickelodeon, and it was more the live action Sabrina the Teenage Witch and Kenan and Kel and programs like that when I got to Nickelodeon.
I was just I don't know, I think I had a cartoon phase, but then I think I just started watching. There was a lot of regular TV on at the time that you could just watch even as a kid, because I specifically remember, based on where I was living, I must have been about 4 or 5, maybe 6. And I would just watch Fort Boyard and stare at Linda Message's tits.
Fort Boyard. I think you'd when I was old enough. When Nickelodeon came out, I think you had to be so bloody rich to be able to afford it. If I ever asked my parents in Nickelodeon, they would have laughed in my face.
That's the thing, yeah.
Satellite TV.
Yeah, Sky.
No bloody way are we getting satellite TV. They'll be like, you'll make do with Fort Boyard on Channel 4 and you'll like it.
That was until Murdoch got the checkbook out and bought the rights to the Premier League, and the rest was history. Now football satellite get with the program.
I think the real question is, where is Melinda Messenger now? I think that's something I'd love to know. She's still about? Is she alive?
So she had a weird genetic condition where her tits never actually stopped growing, and eventually she slipped 4 discs in her back at once.
Did she really?
Yeah, they
That's
literally
not true.
they never
way.
stopped growing. They physically never stopped growing.
That can't be real.
Jonesy, please don't Google that. Of course it's not.
I'm Googling it right now.
I'm just imagining Jonesy's Google search. Did Melinda Messenger's tits really never stop growing?
Wow, she's 50. Do you know what's funny?
Is she looking good for 50?
The reason she does look good for 50. The reason I was laughing is because I actually saw something about someone the other day who has that exact condition.
Oh, wow, really?
So I was like, that could be real. I've heard of someone else having it. So there you go. Here's her television listings: Eurotrash, Fort Boyard, Celebrity Big Brother. Absolutely,
that's all you need.
Smashing it.
She had a secret weapon or two that were key to her TV career, such as that one.
All of our non-British audience now thinking, who the bloody hell is Melinda Messenger? Go look her up.
All of the non-British listeners are all sitting at their phones and their computers googling exactly who she is.
Yeah,
Melinda Messenger, Eurotrash. Oh, that's all you need right there.
I've got a feeling that's not been the first time you searched something like that. Look that up, Stef.
There's going to be something I'm going to look up today.
Well, that is it for the news stories. Jamie, did you want to tell us what the thing that you'd seen from Nintendo?
I did. Well, yeah, so basically a Nintendo Direct was happening alongside this podcast recording. Kind of like difficult to keep tabs on at the same time because we had to get going and to start recording. But
there'll be a secret episode coming tomorrow.
No, there won't, because
after Jamie and Jonesy stay up till 2 a.m. getting it recorded.
No, because the Direct is now over. What's the best way of going about this? Like, I can rattle through stuff, or I can pick out things that look big, or I can just tell you the thing that made my eyes widen.
Tell us the thing that made your eyes widen, and then we'll decide if we want to go into any more, because we've been going for just over 2 hours now. So
okay, the thing that made my eyes widen is that Shigeru Miyamoto made a surprise appearance on the Nintendo Direct, which I can see already. Like, you're pulling faces, like, oh, what is he doing on a Direct? The answer is he came along to talk about the Super Mario movie that is being made. The animated Super Mario movie. It has now been confirmed that it is going to release in theaters holiday 2022, releasing December 21st in North America. And this is a part I want your live, unfiltered reaction to. Jones, you're not looking it up, are you?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I just read an amazing. I'm going to have to tell you this. What I just read.
Get ready to go down a rabbit hole, because lots of questions to be asked about like a Super Mario movie, especially because it's being made by the Despicable Me / Minions team.
Is John Leguizamo in it?
We're about to get there. So, but you might be wondering to yourself, like, oh, so are they going to make these characters talk? Like, these characters don't really talk. How are you going to make that funny? Well, they will talk. So brace yourself for the voices we'll be hearing.
Was that even a question?
They'll be talking, all right. And do you know who'll be talking for them? Leading from the front as Mario is Mr. Chris Pratt, a.k.a. Star-Lord. Princess Peach.
He's going to fuck his career.
Princess Peach will be played by the star of Queen's Gambit, the chess lord herself, Anya Taylor-Joy.
Oh, okay, yeah. She's incredible. She can do anything.
The nasally guy, Charlie Day from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, will be the cheeky brother Luigi.
I can kind of see it. Yeah, I can kind of see it.
Get ready to hear the big booming voice of Jack Black as Bowser.
That's quality.
Yeah, that is quite cool.
Keegan-Michael Key of Key and Peele fame is playing Toad, apparently.
Okay, yeah, that's a bit of a weird one, but all right.
Yeah. I don't know who comes to mind when you think of Donkey Kong, but for me, first to top of the list has to be Seth Rogen.
Oh, what for Donkey Kong?
Seth Rogen, Donkey Kong.
Have you ever heard Donkey Kong speak? Ever?
Has
he spoken?
No, he doesn't speak. He doesn't speak.
The closest thing he does is the ooh in Smash Bros.
Do you know what's funny? You said as soon as you said Donkey Kong, it did make me kind of lean towards somebody like John. Is it John C. Reilly who plays?
He plays Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah, something like that.
Some smaller castings.
Okay.
Kevin Michael Richardson is Kamek. Fred Armisen, who I do recognise, is Cranky Kong. And Sebastian Maniscalco is Spike. And it's been confirmed that Charles Martinet, who is the real-life voice of characters like Mario, will be featured in some capacity.
Who's met Charles Martinet?
Well, why the hell isn't Charles Martinet the real voice of Mario?
Well, the thing is, he is
movie?
he is the only person that's ever voiced Mario ever. Even as Mario has kind of like said more stuff. So the idea, like,
just cast him.
The idea of like sitting down to a Mario movie and just out of nowhere, like Chris Pratt's voice starts coming out of his mouth, like that just made my head do a spin when I first read it. Like, how was Chris Pratt's voice going to come out of Mario?
All I can think of is Chris Pratt is just going to be reading off lines like, "Oh my God, Luigi, we got to go and save a Peach."
I was going to say, do you reckon they'll do the Italian accent?
We got to go and save a Peach
no, because that would be like that would be fucking like racist. Or something. It would be insensitive. It would be culturally insensitive, wouldn't it?
But Charles Martinet does it.
Yeah, but that's like when fucking Hank Azaria did a poo for like 30 years, and then it took him like probably 10 years too long to be like, probably shouldn't do an Indian accent for millions of people every week. I'm gonna retire that one. Charles Martinet. Yeah,
I don't know, man. I think he has to do the Italian accent, surely. Otherwise, it's not Mario, right?
He's the Italian plumber.
Because then people could come out
unless
and
he's going to have like a Bronx accent. Is it Bronx? Is that the typical?
Well, no, because that's where he's from in the live action movie, right? Is they're all New York guys. Like, I don't know if there's, I don't think if there's anything, because Mario doesn't exist in the real world, so there's nothing canonically that links him to a place like New York. It's just that we all saw that movie with fucking Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo. We're like, oh, New York. But he's from. Is Mario from? Is Mario from New Donk City? Is that canon?
I don't know.
I don't think he's native to the Mushroom Kingdom. I think he's from somewhere else and travels there. But then again, I don't know. Like,
I'm glad that they're not going to do. I don't want them to do the New York thing. That would just be. They don't need to do that. That's just weird. Don't make him some weird human thing.
Like, I think you hire Chris Pratt. Like the only thing that's reassuring for me, somewhat, is that like I know Chris Pratt is a guy who reputation for some reason is like kind of like. And again, I say for some reason because I actually don't know. I don't keep up with it. But like some people have gone off him a little bit. But in terms of voice roles, I thought he was very good in that first Lego movie. Very likable in that first Lego movie.
Yeah, no, I liked him in that as well. I thought he was very good.
So he can do fun, light voice work. So we'll see. For what it's worth, by the way, seems like a.
Let me hold this up. This is a very young me.
Hey, there he is.
There's me and Charles Martinet.
That's cool. That's cool, man. You do look very young there.
Jesus Christ, when was that? I can't see when that was. 2007. I put that on Facebook. So that was 14 years ago that I interviewed him. So that was quite a while ago. But Chris Pratt, like you said it, I was like, that's awful. But I am a big Chris Pratt fan, and he can do voices, and he was very good in the Lego Movie. Okay, yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I guess, I know we're not talking about it in full, but it seems like a solid direct. There's one particular title that has been missing for years now that we were wondering if it would return, and it did. So plenty to get stuck into next week for anyone listening and who wants our thoughts on those games.
I think the casting for the Mario movie makes more sense than the casting for the Borderlands movie.
At least
because the Borderlands movie is just bums on seats. We're going to try and sell as many tickets as possible because this film's going to suck.
I genuinely think there was some intent in some of the Borderlands casting to make more physical approximations in the casting as they could between like the acts and the characters. Yeah, and I guess like with a voice cast, you don't need to. Like it doesn't matter if Chris Pratt looks like Mario or not. It's a voice. I think the weird thing about Mario compared to Borderlands is that like the Borderlands characters in the games talk too much as it is. Mario has the opposite problem where no one talks. So like how do you bridge the gap and make them fucking talk in a way that's natural? And again, like why are you working with the animation studio that revolutionized fucking voiceless characters? Like the Minions, love them or hate them, were a fucking revolution. Like, why'd you pick out?
Can you imagine if Mario's just like?
You couldn't have it. Like, there's no way they would do that with Mario. Like, there's no movie if they can't talk. How do you get across what's going on in the movie?
I don't say like there's ways you can make films with characters that don't talk in the way that we expect them to, and literally Minions was one of them, and this is the team that made Minions. So
yeah, no, I see what you mean. I see what you're saying. Well. It's not going to be as good as the Sonic movie because that was great.
Do you know what, now they mention like,
I take it back. It'll be good.
Idris Elba as Knuckles is like similarly like kind of fascinating casting as a lot of what Mario's just done. So, be interesting to see how it all works out for everyone.
Yeah, no, totally. And that brings us to the end of our show. Thank you so much to Stef for joining us this week. Chris will be back.
Thanks for having me.
Next week, you can check Stef out over at TechNuovo. Oh no, I keep saying that. Just TechNuovo on Twitch. Check out the YouTube channel TechNuovo as well for reviews and sort of look at technology and stuff. That you break stuff down and talk about things as well. So. It's not just reviews, is it just reviews? I only ever watch your reviews. I don't really watch anything else.
Is this reviews that we're branching into? Well, we've branched into tutorials, live streaming tutorials on how to set up Twitch in nice different ways.
But it is always my port of call when I want to buy some new technology. One of the first things I do, especially with like monitors and things, is check out your channel and go and see what you're talking about and see what I should be looking at. Because when I want to buy a new monitor, when I want to buy anything techie related, TechNuovo is where you need to go. So there you go.
MateView GT by Huawei.
Coming out. When you say it's coming out, the video for that?
I don't know when it's coming out, to be honest with you. I know it's on pre-order, but I couldn't see a release date on their website. So
no, sorry. When's your video? When's your review of it coming out?
Oh, Sunday.
So a couple of
days up on the channel on Sunday.
See, I don't know what time it's going to be on Sunday, so I'm going to ring that bell for notifications.
He's always working. He's a consummate professional. Yes, you can reach out to us if you want to drop a comment below the YouTube video. You can also send us a message on Twitter at SuperShowPod, or you could join our Patreon over at patreon.com/SuperShow. You can join the Discord for as little as $2 and you can talk to us directly. And apart from that, the only thing left to do is to give you something you can put in the comments below the YouTube video so we know you made it to the end. Any suggestions, guys?
Oh, damn.
They drop.
It's horrible.
What about Where is Melinda Messenger?
Where is Melinda Messenger?
Or something about Mario voices.
Or you could do like, I know where Melinda Messenger is. She's in Fort Boyard, the Dwarf Cut.
Oh, full circle. Fort Boyard.
Fort Boyard, the Dwarf Cut.
The Dwarf Cut. There you go. Drop that in the comments to let us know that you've watched the beginning and the end.
By the way, hashtag release the Dwarf Cut on Twitter, please. Let's get it trending. I want to restore the Dwarf verse.
16 minutes of Blade Gold, the Dwarf Cut. You need it in your life. Thank you, guys.
Remember the bit where his hand gets cut off? Yeah.
Yes, and then it starts to grow back and weird. Do
you know who else remembers?
Stephen Dorff.
Stephen Dorff. True Detective Season 3 on DVD and Blu-ray now.
There you go. Plug in Stephen Dorff. And we will see you the same time next week. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.